Good evening, everyone. We need to hold a public hearing. Today is September 12th. We have a public hearing on the following items to be considered on second and final reading. This public hearing will be for these three items only. The first is the land use amendment to go before the Mount Juliet City Regional Planning Commission prior to being heard or considered by the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners. The second item is to amend Part B of the Unified Development Code by modifying Article Residential District Regulation, Section 5, 1013, public notices by short-term rentals. The third is to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverages, Section 455, Permits 3, Section 458C, same fee, Annual Tax, Change in Management, and Section 478.1, Valid Permit Limitations. The public is invited. If you have any comments on these three items to be considered on second reading tonight, I'd invite you to come forward. If not, we will adjourn this meeting. We'll reconvene at 6:30, where we'll take public hearings, our public comments on general items at that point. Anybody wishing to come forward for any of these three items mentioned? All right, seeing none, we will adjourn the public hearing and we will reconvene for the regular meeting at 6:30. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners. Today is September 12th, 2022. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum present pursuant to City Code 62210, so we will proceed with the conducting of the city business. Next item on our agenda is the setting of the agenda. If there's no objection, I would like to set the agenda as published, with the exception of adding the resolution that is at the table and adding it in as 11B2, just below 11B1, under resolutions to be considered under new business. Any objections to that? Hearing none, we will set the agenda as published. Yeah.
But we are moving, as in the new printout, 9A2 up from where it was, because it was down in the 11, because that's actually second reading. The new, it has it in the new printout, but 9. Well, it's now 9A2. It was down in 11 point something.
Which item are you referencing?
It's the slip ramp and the design of Pleasant Grove Road widening. That was put down under new business first reading. And so under the new printout that's at the table, that's now up at the top. So that covers what you're saying, right?
Oh, correct. On my copy, I have at 9A2 is an ordinance to amend the fiscal year for the slip ramp.
Yes, I was just making sure, because you said as published, and I wasn't sure what was published.
Well,
So-
I couldn't go by memory on what was put out earlier in the week, but I can only say what's printed out at the table.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that is going to coincide with what's in the baskets in the back.
Okay. Right.
9A2, okay.
Just showing the
Vice Mayor?
sponsor being city manager, and then this is something myself and Andy Barlow would actually come up with. So I don't think it makes any difference at this point. He agreed with me on it, but
No,
does it make a difference if we want to change it? Or?
doesn't make any difference. I don't think the city manager nor anyone else would object to you if you want to co-sponsor along with them.
I'll co-sponsor with it.
Okay.
If we could change that in the minutes.
All right. Any other things? All right. Hearing none, no objections to that, we'll have to set the agenda as published with the addition of the resolution that's on the table. If you want to follow along, we do have them in the wire baskets on the left and right side of the room at the doors back there. If you'd like to follow along with what we're doing with the agenda tonight. If you're at home and you'd like to follow along, we're online. You can also follow along with us online by the agendas that's posted out there. We have an 88-page packet, which is probably going to take a little longer than it sounds. 4 items in unfinished business, and now with 10 items added to the new business section, a couple of appointments, and a discussion item. With that, we'll move on to our invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'll ask our fire chief, Chief Luffman, if he'd come forward, lead us in the invocation and pledge, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. If you'll bow with me. Gracious Father, 21 years ago today, we were still looking for our people, our friends, our family, and anyone we could find in the rubble of that horrible day. 21 years later, Lord, we are still in remembrance of that day and the days that followed. I've heard people ask, where were you on that day? And I know you were in the same place you are today, within our hearts, in the hearts of each of us. You never left, and you were never out of reach. Your children need to make the habit of seeking you in good times and bad, for you are never far away from our hearts, and you stand ready all the time to embrace us as the Lord of our lives. You provide for us a life here and a life everlasting in our eternal home in your heaven. Tonight, we ask your blessing on the occasion to continue your work for your people, the citizens, visitors, and businesses in Mount Juliet. We ask, Heavenly Father, that all actions in these proceedings bring glory to your name. We ask that each of these elected servants and administrators be granted strength, courage, and dignity as they decide provisions for your city. Forgive us where we fail you. Thank you for your Son, Jesus, for it is in his name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief, thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. This is from our regular meeting from August 22nd. Is there a motion? A motion and second. Any questions, comments? All right. With that, all in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay. That passes by a vote of 4-0-1 with the extension. Next item on our agenda is citizen comments. I will open the floor up just momentarily for citizen comments. We reserve the right to terminate comments if anyone's remarks become abusive to other citizens, employees, or fellow board members. The board's under no obligations to respond to questions from the floor. I ask that you would come forward. We'd be recognized for 3 minutes pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 220 of the City Code. Just ask that you state your name and address for the record. This is be your only opportunity for comments.
Joan Giltner,
Joan,
1409 Tate Lane.
all right. The time is 6:36. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
I believe annexation of the entire southern portion of Tate Lane should be deferred at least until the western connector alignment route is resolved and access to Lynn Haven 3 are revisited. We have been in continued communication with the city on this issue since 2014 when Lynn Haven 3 was proposed. As I've previously stated in meetings with various government representatives, a lot has changed since 2014. Green Hill High School is operational, cut-through traffic on Lebanon Road growth and development, including Nichols Vale, is expanded. Hamilton Denson Parks is nearing completion, and one lot in the city, 12 properties underdeveloped on Zumbro's property, need to be factored into future planning. Lynn Haven 3 with access to Tate Lane was approved in 2014 because Tate Lane County residents were outvoted by Due West city residents. Now that the subdivision's egress to Tate Lane might cause issues regarding how the plat is recorded, the city's after the fact fix is to annex Tate Lane. Further, the city approved Hamilton Denson Park, got it 90% complete, and then figured out that regulating the city park on a county road might cause jurisdictional confusion. The city needs to figure out another way to address these administrative challenges other than annexing Tate Lane. Perhaps a simple solution is to access Lynn Haven 3 or in Hamilton, Lynn Haven 3 via Due West and annex Tate Lane only up to the soccer field entrance. At the August planning meeting, it was stated that Victory Baptist Church wanted to connect to city sewers. This is inaccurate. Subsequent conversations with church staff indicated that they do not desire connection. Again, a shorter annex portion of Tate Lane, if absolutely justified. Supposedly, the Due West access to Lynn Haven 3 was eliminated in 2014. However, it is still in the CTP commissioned in 2016 and passed in 2020. Nothing is constructed, hence there is still time to make adjustments. With respect to Lynn Haven 3, which was annexed into the city in about 2016, why does it not have at least one exit to the city via Due West? With an existing easement off the Lynn Haven 3 back lots, an exit to the city could be accommodated. Further, why is a 36 parcel subdivision not required to have 2 access points? We understand that having Lynn Haven 3 access via both Due West and Tate Lane could create cut-through opportunities from North Mount Juliet Road. Perhaps a further traffic study is warranted. Besides, Lynn Haven 3 is already tripling the volume of traffic on Tate Lane. What's a few more cars, right? The residents of Tate Lane thought we were to be given 14 days notice of hearing regarding annexation. While the public notice to impacted residents is dated August 2nd, notices were postmarked on August 9th and received by residents on or after August 11th, just 1 week prior to the Planning Commission meeting on the 18th. It seems like someone is trying to fast track this annexation without giving residents time to provide input. Similarly, we were told annexation was not likely to be on the Board of Commission agenda until October, only to be surprised on September 7th that the topic is included in this September 12th session.
To wrap it up.
What is the rush? Let's slow down and make the right decision and not one that has to be fixed later, like Hamilton Denson Park and Lynn Haven 3 jurisdictional plat issues. With respect to communication with the city, minutes to the August planning meeting state there is no citizen comment on item 5.2. This too is inaccurate. I'll stop there and let somebody else, unless I have a few more minutes.
You've exceeded your time, but thank you for your comments. Anyone else for comments? Name and
Jim.
address?
Jim Hunter, 1478 Tate Lane.
All right. Well, Mayor, you are recognized for 3 minutes. The time is 6:41.
641.
I
don't
saw
think
it in the
it's gonna
paper.
take that long. You know, back when y'all were talking about this and exiting through Due West, the people, the residents of Due West, adamantly and vehemently indicated that that was not going to happen. They didn't want it to happen. I'm simply asking that you pay us the same respect. We're not citizens of Mount Juliet. Some of us own property in Mount Juliet, but we don't live there, so we don't vote there. Give us the same respect that you gave those citizens. There is not one person, perhaps one person, on that section of road who, and he has a vested interest in it. I'm not begrudging that, but no one else. There was a petition signed that every single person did not want it. So I'm asking you to respect our wishes as if we were a citizen of Mount Juliet. Fair enough?
All right. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Good evening, Sharon Nolan, 1409 Tate Lane.
All right. You're recognized for 3 minutes. The time is 6:42.
These are notes from September of 2014, when we came and visited with Planning Commission, Board of Commissioners, and the same concerns we had in 2014 we have today about Tate Lane. Traffic safety, Tate Lane is not safe. Coordination with Wilson County with regard to maintenance liability of Tate Lane. There hasn't been much coordination between the city and the county. 2014, the city stated they had no intention of annexing Tate Lane, but that seems to have changed. Right-of-way ownership and access, the railroad crossing. Now we've added the soccer fields, the greenway, the Zumbro property. That intersection at West Division and Tate Lane has become even more dangerous. Road improvements, right-of-way access. Like I said, all these things remain the same. In the resolution proposed with the annexation, there was little or no benefit beyond the services we receive now from an emergency standpoint. We still have WEMA. The city will coordinate with WEMA for our emergency response. If anything, annexing Tate Lane is going to cause further confusion for emergency service response, because half is still in the county, half is in the city, or part of it's in the city. I just don't know how that's going to be resolved. So again, Tate Lane residents, we signed a petition. We still have some serious concerns that we think need to be revisited and vetted before moving forward with any annexation. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening, sir.
Bill Ligon, 13836 Lemon Road, Old Hickory.
It's 6:45. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
I won't talk 3 minutes. My brother and I own the first farm on the north end of Tate Lane. And what happens on the south end affects us on the north end. Tate Lane was cut by the 4 landowners on the east side doing horse and buggy days. Prior to this lane being cut, they had to ride across each other's farm to get to where they wanted to go. There is no deed to this road. The landowners still own to the center of the road. So I don't know the legality of the government trying to annex a road that still belongs to the landowners. If this proposed annexation is the beginning of trying to run a connector road, several years ago, the state of Tennessee passed a law that said cities can no longer annex farms without the landowner's permission. This was done because cities were bullying farmers, trying to force them out and close down their farms. So what is the purpose of annexing Tate Lane? You cannot annex my farm, and I don't think Ms. Tate will give you permission to annex hers. So your annexing stops where the Tate farm starts. So what is the alternative motive? Get the Department of Transportation to come in and take our land by condemnation. This will destroy the 2 farms, and this is the very reason the state of Tennessee passed a law to prevent cities from bullying farmers. If you want to do something constructive, leave Tate Lane alone and put it in the National Historical Register.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for citizen comments?
Hi,
Good evening. Could you have your name and address for the
my
record,
name
please?
is Beth Jones. I live at 1405 Tate Lane.
Oh.
I'm Linda Tate's daughter, and
Well, you're
He's absolutely
recognized
right.
for 3 minutes. It's 6:47.
absolutely. I'm here tonight to ask you not to approve this annexation. I can't find any evidence that the annexation would be a benefit to the city of Mount Juliet. The purpose of the annexation is still very unclear. I've reviewed the last 2 planning commission meetings in regard to this proposed annexation, and the contradictory reasons for the annexation are given. I know I've only got a few minutes, so I'll paraphrase for you. On the July 21st meeting, Andy Barlow said, it's just one of several we're looking at eventually as we get further into planning the Western Connector. So it's just one of those. We'll have a few more strategic annexations in the future, but we want to be careful about that because of cost. At the August 18th meeting, he said the need of this is based on a lot of new developments. The Lynn Haven 3 development was approved in 2014. They have a vested rights already established and will happen whether this area is annexed or not. Soccer fields are coming to completion later this year. Actually had interest from Victory Baptist wanting to potentially, eventually, connect to city sewer. That would require annexation as well, so we have a lot of factors at play. Lynn Haven actually have a sidewalk requirement, so instead of having it come later, it's best to have the sidewalks done all at one time. These factors all coming together right now set the timing for this. Lynn Haven still approved for development after 8 years. The church maybe someday might want to connect to the city sewer. So the only new item that's happening here is the completion of the soccer fields. He went on to say, we cannot stop development. We're not going to stop development. So we just have to manage it, and have the area under city ownership helps us in that regard. Well, yeah, if the city owns it, it makes it their responsibility to manage it. When addressing the Western connectors, there's a lot of planning going forward. People can express their concerns at that time. This annexation is not necessarily for that per se. It could be useful for that, but it's not for that. See, that's where words matter. It's not necessarily for that, or it's not for that. These two statements contradict each other. As citizens, we look at our elected officials as well as city staff to be factual in their representations. We expect and deserve transparency when questioning what's going on and why. Deliberate evasiveness leads to misinformation, and there is no room for misinformation in this arena. Those who allow it are as guilty as those who perpetrate it. The fact is, this annexation will be a burden on the city's resources, and I'd like to ask you not to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else with citizen comments?
Hello, my name is Matt Gardner, 4603 Skymont Drive, Nashville.
You're
Thank you for
recognized 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you regarding our proposed changes to the Village at Pleasant Grove project. There's two aspects to this request. First, as we dove further into the demand drivers for the office and retail portions of the project, we wanted to increase the allowable main building size to 140,000 square feet, in addition to the 7,500 square foot restaurant and pop-up of up to 2,000 square feet. We're also looking to shift that allowable square footage from 2 3-story buildings to a single 4-story building and have a height variance up to 70 feet to allow the plate heights for Class A office buildings that they like. We feel that this increased square footage will enhance the open space and the walkability that forms the heart of this project, and whose general concept is not going to be impacted by this. In fact, it'll be a little bit better because we've got a slightly smaller square footage or footprint of the buildings. Secondly, we were approached by Lillian Beretta, who owns the adjacent property immediately to the west of the existing PUD, who's been trying for several years to start the development of the Papa Joe House. It's a nonprofit named in her late husband's honor that provides a place to stay for patients and caregivers of certain types of cardiac patients at Vanderbilt Hospital. Those patients must remain close to Vanderbilt Hospital for care for weeks and months post-surgery. And the nonprofit provides hotel rooms right now for those. They've been looking to find a permanent house for those patients and their caregivers. And so they approached us to look at, can they sell us some land that can be incorporated to expand the Village at Pleasant Grove? And part of that will be the Papa Joe House. In addition to the Papa Joe House, which at full build out will be up to 32 suites for those residents, we're looking for an additional 215 flats and 20 townhouses and an entertainment retail space. It's a phrase coined by planning staff that looks like a rock climbing gym or something like that. We're asking for a continuation of the variances that were approved in phase 1, including utilizing playground or defining playground as our outdoor amenity space and recreational areas in lieu of a swing set and slide playground. On phase 2, we do plan to fence the property boundary between us and the Tillman property to the south at their request. This does not change the $2,500 per unit voluntary fee we agreed to on phase 1. And on the phase 2 additional units, we're going to up that to $5,000 per unit. We are also, that can go to these Public Works requested improvements at Pleasant Grove Road and Central Pike. Going down, excuse me, I'm trying to go fast. I have 10 seconds. I appreciate you guys' consideration on this and hope you vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else for citizen comments? All right. We generally don't take any comments on the item. So if you have something to add to the comments that were added, I ask you to come forward now. If not, I'm going to close citizen comments and move on to commissioner reports and comments. Okay, seeing none, we will move to commissioner reports and comments, and I'll recognize our Vice Mayor and Commissioner Ray Justice.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to our District 2 Commissioner Turbat.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for coming out tonight, and thank you, Chief Luffman, for just once again bringing a great opportunity for us to just remember. What was interesting this past weekend was my wife and I, we went to our son's football game on Saturday, and just looking around, obviously he's 7 years old, and looking around at all those students and again, the coaches as well as the association out there that runs that program, they took to consideration, the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance, as well as, an opportunity for remembrance for 9/11. And of course, for all of us that are old enough, we all know exactly where we were, what was going on, as well as the quietness for many days after that 9/11, because of course they landed, they actually stopped all travel for air travel. and just looking back at all these kids that had no clue what we were talking about, and obviously, this past week, there's been a lot, well, not a lot, but a few emails sent to me about, some of the first responders when it comes to, just sharing our support. And it was asked of me to simply, to acknowledge that everyone has a belief and everyone has an opinion, and that our city, should recognize everything. But then I go back to that 9/11, and then we all talk about, there was a statement that somebody had brought up about 9/12, about what that brought to our counties, our cities, and our country, was we were all united. So, for these folks that send me these emails and continuously want to divide us, and then we roll into a remembrance of 9/11, I just ask for you, to think about, again, about the men and women that, that again, as we are running away from emergencies, these men and women are running to the emergencies. And just, please, before you send these emails, listen, I read every single one of them. But think about that before you go judging somebody because of the way that they, they hang a flag or they have a picture or a post. We are all so fast to simply respond without thinking. Things can be misinterpreted, but for the citizens that did reach out to me and ask me to, simply have a comment, I think this couldn't have been a better time, rolling into, the remembrance of what we just all experienced 21 years ago. Moving past that, this past weekend, our Parks Board had a great time. They had a good turnout. I think over over 150 families came out to enjoy the movie in the park. I'll tell you, that was the second one that I've ever got a chance to experience. Usually on Friday nights, I'm getting an opportunity to hang out with somebody within the community, either going to dinner or just, having an opportunity to hang out with folks. And this past Friday night was a great opportunity for me to spend time with my family, as well as get a chance to meet some folks within the community. So thank you to everybody that came out Friday night and celebrated movie night with us. It was a great movie, by the way. The next one, though, I will tell you, October 7th. So I think it's at 6:45-ish. So you don't need to have kids. Just, have a good time out there. It was a perfect night for us. There was an email that came out also for Mount Juliet PD and for myself, thinking about my oldest daughter that's 17, that's out traveling. This is her, I guess, 2.5 years of driving. And, our police department, our first responders, sometimes they get the best side of things as well as sometimes of the negative. But, there was a picture that was shared with us, as well as a voicemail from a mother that just so happened her son ended up getting pulled over. And, the officer stopped him and, of course, educated him on seatbelt, and then less than 10, 15 minutes later, the young man ended up totaling out his truck. So think about that. The mother had stated that, that could, potentially of, he wouldn't be with us, if he didn't have that warning. So, as my middle daughter is, and youngest daughter is getting ready to start going through some of those driving classes, even dad has to take a moment, slow down in order to put that seatbelt on. So, for the folks that do know me, I'm always talking about safety, always talking about, slowing down in order to speed up. So just take that into consideration. And then just want to close out with some events coming up. The Southern Rhythm Farm Fest, September 24th. For the folks that got an opportunity to make it out this past spring, this is also out there on Mr. Tate's, excuse me, sorry, not Mr. Tate, Mr. Liggins' farm out there. My apologies. There's a lot of Tate lanes going on around earlier. So, but anyways, they're actually doing the, the animal petting area, as well as, supporting local businesses. That's actually going to be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Mr. Beasley is going to be promoting that. And I just wanted to, take an opportunity tonight to share it with the folks that are watching online. So, Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move to Commissioner Hefner.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, Sarah. With that, I'll recognize Commissioner Mullally.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenny, for bumping that thermostat up. My teeth are chattering. Okay, I'm going to use my time to brag on BPAC. This coming Sunday, River, I have a photo. This coming Sunday is BPAC, which is Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and Mount Juliet has our own BPAC. And this coming Sunday on September 18th is our 9th annual walk, run, roll event from 2 to 4 at Mundy Park. It's family friendly, so put your walking shoes on, your running shoes on, bring your bicycles, make sure you wear your helmets. It is kid friendly, so bring the kids. Yes. Huh. So so everybody come out for that. There's 2 routes. One is a 3-mile for walkers and runners, and one is a 5-mile for bikers, and all skill levels for walking, running, and biking is encouraged to attend. All routes are kid friendly as well. The more experienced riders can go first, so they won't be held up. We're meeting at the registration tent at the Pavilion in Mundy Park, which is off Belinda Parkway. And there's also a bike giveaway sponsored by the Volunteers. And you have to, you can register when you get there. There's a registration tent, and the drawing will be at the end. So we'll meet at the Pavilion tent and come back to the Pavilion at the end of the routes. And there also will be a story walk on the big dance with 17 reading stations for younger kids. And let's see, if it rains, and I don't think it's supposed to at this point, it's the next Sunday, which is the 25th. So last week, BPAC was awarded an award. The Mount Juliet BPAC received an award this past week from Walk Back Bike Nashville. Walk Bike Nashville is a big deal. They give out Streets for People's Award. Mount Juliet is blessed to have received one of these awards called the Most Walkable, Bikeable Middle Tennessee Project. And I've got the award right here. I don't break it. This is the award. So this is pretty exciting. We were invited to the Streets for People ceremony on Thursday night, which included dinner and a party afterwards. And it was held at the Grisham Smith offices in downtown Nashville. The after party was on the 12th floor rooftop terrace overlooking Nashville. And it was just a beautiful setting with all the night lights and everything. And we're so appreciative for this recognition and award. Thank you to Walk Bike Nashville and Grisham Smith for hosting the celebration. This ceremony is Walk Bike Nashville's way of recognizing people, organizations, and businesses who are devoted to creating a more walkable, bikeable Nashville as well as surrounding areas. How much time do I have?
I have you down. You have for 2 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to read a statement. Since I'm bragging on BPAC, I was going to read a statement by Andy Barlow, who's our Public Works Director. He was talking about GNRC. He said, I know we talk about our Mount Juliet BPAC, but did you know that there's a larger BPAC for the entire Nashville region? This group is very important because they provide scoring for competitive grant project proposals. Thanks to the efforts of our city to advance bicycle and pedestrian facilities in unusual ways, I was invited to be a part of a panel discussing funding opportunities for bike and pedestrian projects today, on that day that he sent it. Of note, Mount Juliet was highlighted on how we were able to be creative with funding opportunities for both the Town Center Trail as well as for Mount Juliet Road bridge widening. I would like to note that we are considered to be leaders in this field amongst our peers. I like to thank the BOC and Kenny for leadership in this area as well. We wouldn't be here where we are without consistent vision for seeking bicycle lanes and pedestrian facilities and sidewalks and greenways facilities as they take shape. So that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll just quickly add that, we we do really appreciate and we celebrate our first responders here in the city of Mount Juliet, and they do a wonderful job. They do a great job keeping us safe. They're always available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. While we're sleeping at home, they're out they're working, they're watching over us, keeping us safe. But days like yesterday on 9/11, it really kind of drives the point home for the work and the commitment that they take home. So I'll commend them for that and thank them again for their service for that. I also want to thank everybody who come out tonight to address the commission. Appreciate you taking the time to come out here. I don't like to have to remind people it's 3 minutes. I'm sorry, but it's wrapped up in our city code. So with that, I'll end by saying this. I'll thank the Green Hill Hawks Youth League Association. They had invited me out for one of their games. I tell you, they got a wonderful thing going there, and I appreciate the invitation for them. And with that, we'll recognize our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Commissioners. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and participating. It's always good to see a lot of familiar faces. I see some fellow artisans here tonight that's been really good to the city in years past. Matter of fact, the folks there from Tate Lane had painted the beautiful mural that's on the side of the building down by Kroger. It's held up very well, so thank you so much for that. And to the Tate family, I want to thank them personally because I used to enjoy a lot of conversations with Mr. Tate. We talk about everything from railroads to history. So anytime I had a question about old Mount Juliet, I could call Mr. Tate and I'd talk to Mom and she'd put me through to him on the phone. And I genuinely miss him severely. So he's a really good man. So thank everybody again for coming out tonight and participating. Here in just a minute, Mayor, I'll turn it over to our fire chief, who's got a couple introductions of some very special people that he'd like to introduce everybody to, and those that are in the crowd and watching from home. But I guess I'm pleading with folks. When I was a kid, and a lot of people in the room are old enough to remember this, there was a commercial and it talked about Tennessee trash. And you remember the little Corvair that ran around and they were throwing trash out as they went down the road. And for whatever reason, seemed like it was a lot better for a long time. And then just in recent years, it's just gotten really bad where you just see it to where folks just set trash out, dump trash on people's property, throw it out as they're going down the road. And you can tell what's intentional as opposed to what's by accident. Dumping things, using Tate Lane, for example, we've been requested before to go out on Tate Lane and pick up couches and love seats and mattresses and things of that nature. And we desire to do that because if you leave it there, they'll just dump more. So for moms and dads, grannies and grandpas, or anybody that pass on to some of these young folks, the importance of why that is that when you vandalize or litter, and then when sometimes I'm talking about litter and it's whole houses full of furniture, it's just been dumped, that just gets passed on to everybody, all the taxpayers, and it's really not fair. And we're better than that in this community. So just beg of people to help with that. And also always encourage folks to shop local, support your local mom and pop shops. That's what makes us special. That's what makes Mount Juliet. And last but definitely not least, I'd like to ask our chief to come up for the introductions to introduce a couple of special people. And in doing this, before you get to, I want to thank this Board of Commissioners who puts public safety first. The city's making a big step when it comes to EMS services. And Chief, I want you to speak to that in particular and why that's so very important for our city and our citizens.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
I happen to know a guy. No, Chief Edwards and I just want to take a few minutes. The last 3 weeks, we've been on a kind of a PR tour, getting our new EMS chief and our new fire marshal introduced by ways of different media through the print and on the radio. But we wanted to take specific time to come before this board and express our appreciation for the trust and the courage to step out and add these two ventures to the fire department of the city of Mount Juliet. One of the things when people ask me about, where we're at and where we're going, I tell them we have 5 elected officials that have really walked the walk on safety. And so have given us the opportunity, the tools to try to get where we need. I think the ISO rating was a good start. We're going to add the stations, solidify our ratings, and then add the necessary people to do so. But I did want to bring the individuals that you allowed me to select. If you would, guys, Brent Blaymyers, he's our fire marshal, and Eric Newman will be serving us as our EMS chief. And so they've been at it now for 3 weeks or a little more. And I'm telling you, down there, we've made some great strides getting us where we need to be and in position so that we can go and give full service from the fire department to the citizens and visitors and businesses here in Mount Juliet. So I'll turn it over to the deputy chief.
No, just want to say thank you guys for the support of our budget this year. Lots of big expectations, and we look forward to contributing to that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't tell you you had to speak on purpose because I'm going to get you up here.
No, I just want to, thank Chief Luffman and Chief Edwards, give me the opportunity to fill the role as a fire marshal. It's one of my desires. I do enjoy codes, also being out there, with the community and building our community risk reduction program up. It's something that's going to help out long run, with our ISO rating. It's going to help out with, getting us out into the public a little bit more, making the community safer. That's my ultimate goal with this position.
I didn't tell you that either. Sorry.
Good evening. I want to take the time to thank everyone here, especially Chief Luffman, Chief Edwards, and the City Commission for your support and engagement with the EMS services of the fire department. About the last 3 weeks, going on 4 weeks now that I've been here, we've accomplished a lot of work. We still have a lot of work ahead of us, and we look forward to putting forward a service line, a product that this city will be proud of.
But I did want to make a special opportunity to introduce them to you, and again express our gratitude for the faith that you've shown in us and for the support. And Kenny, thank you for your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Chief Luffman, appreciate you doing that, bringing those guys up. I've kind of felt like for a while we were in one of those situations where it was never had so few done so much for so many with so little. And we really have embraced the opportunity to add the services here, add more for our citizens, all while offering actually a lower property tax rate for it and expand the services that we've done. So thank you, sir. With that, concludes the report. We'll move into the business portion of the agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. I will read those. 8A1, an ordinance amending Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, known as Zoning Regulations, Ordinance 2001-29, adopted October 8, 2001, as amending by modifying Article Residential Districts Regulations, Section 5, 1013, Public Notice by Short-Term Rentals. The second item on consent is 8A2, an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverage, Section 455, Permits 3, Section 458C, Same Fee, Annual Tax, Change in Management, and Section 478.1, Valid Permit Limitations. I have a motion. Motion is second. Any questions, comments on the consent? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing that, both of those carry. Next item on the agenda is 9A1, an ordinance to require that all land use amendments go before the Mount Juliet Regional Planning Commission prior to being presented to the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners. Motion. Was that a second? All right. It is on the table. Any questions or comments on this one?
Curiosity,
Vice Mayor?
why was this changed in my absence?
It had a majority vote.
And so that was your reason for changing it?
That's the reason for all changes.
You had a majority vote to change what we had changed prior to when you didn't have the majority the week before or the meeting before. So,
Well,
sounds a little opportunistic is the reason I'm asking that question.
well, in fairness, sir, and since you're calling that out, we did take the opportunity to defer this just so you would have some say in this, even after your absence.
Okay. You've got some questions.
Yeah, I've got some questions.
Commissioner Hefner?
I just want to make sure,
because I'm still unclear on whether or not we're in conflict with state law. So the question is, according to state law, and I guess this is a yes or no answer, according to state law, the BOC has the ultimate decision on land use amendments, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The way this ordinance is written, the planning commission, if it fails to receive a positive vote, or rather as it's worded, a negative vote, it does not carry forward to the BOC, effectively killing the land use amendment for 1 year.
No. Any BOC member can bring it up at the next meeting.
Is that not an appeals process?
No.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Vice Mayor?
One of the reasons this was changed, my understanding, was because the constitutionality of the original that would not allow the Board of Commissioners to have any vote on a land use amendment. Is that not correct?
That was part of it.
Yeah, there was a large part of it. Not to mention the fact that that did not even apply to us because we were a home rule city and had been voted prior to that being passed in the state
It wasn't so
legislature.
much the constitutionality as it was just wrong. And so that's why Pody is Senate and Lynn from the House brought this up to put everybody on the same footing. So the Board of Commissioners, the legislative body is what they call it, has the final say-so regarding land use amendments, whether it begins with the Planning Commission or begins with the BOC. But all these items still have to go back to the Planning Commission, regardless of what the BOC says. So even if it remained without it going to the BOC or without it going to the Planning Commission first, it would eventually have to go back to the Planning Commission. For zonings, that's the only time you'll have a land use amendment, 99.9% of the time, is for a zoning change. So we'll have to go back to the Planning Commission in any event, even if it began with the BOC. And what I think this process does is sending it first to the Planning Commission gives them the opportunity to discuss and advise and make their recommendation and their vote. At the same time, they're looking at a zoning change as well. So it all comes back. It'll speed the process with still giving it the BOC the final say. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I'd ask this, I guess, kind of a rhetorical question. In your opinion, does the state constitution apply to Cannon County, Tennessee?
Yes.
So if it's a constitutional issue, I guess just wondering out loud, why would the state General Assembly have excluded Cannon County from this? Would that not be an unconstitutional action by the state General Assembly?
It would be, and that's why I don't think this change had anything to do with the constitutionality of the previous statute.
Actually, according to the state legislature, it was one of the facts that they were considering when they made the change. And the Attorney General actually is the one who stated that. So you can argue with him. I agree with you. I think it's unconstitutional for them to do Cannon County that way.
An opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I watched all the videos as it went through the state process. I did not see constitutionality come up in that anywhere in the discussions. I imagine it was in a lot of private discussions. But besides that, I mean, we've heard the opinions. There's no constitutionality issues with it. At least the state was willing to entertain. Commissioner Hefner.
So my concern is practicality and potential lawsuits. If a land use amendment fails at the Planning Commission and is not brought forward by a sponsor, which that's what in effect would be, then it, for all intent and purposes, it dies. If it is not brought forward by the BOC, the applicant does not have the right to bring it before the BOC. So in effect, it dies.
Correct. But it dies because no one on the BOC chose to bring it before the BOC.
I understand that, but
and that's where it is.
So if no BOC member brings it forward, it dies.
Correct.
Okay.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. So to me, I see that as a potential opening ourselves up for a lawsuit. That's
Does anyone else comments on this? I mean, I'm not always the smartest man in the room, usually not even close. But if no one at this table has any interest in bringing something forward, I'm kind of question the ability of its passage if no one has any more interest in it than that. Yes, sir, Vice Mayor.
I think you're oversimplifying things to a large degree, because what's going to happen, and I've seen it numerous times over here, is that the planning commission will come through and they say, "Oh, we're going to shut the door on this. We don't need it." And at that point in time, they're looking for one of us to bring it back up and bring it in. Well, I mean, there's so many things politically that can happen to that. That's a landmine, a minefield that you're going to be walking through. Not to mention the fact that when they bring it back with a bias that is against it, a negative bias, because the planning commission has already said no to it. So yeah, it would be just pretty ignorant, actually, for any one of us to bring something up with that much going against it, regardless of whether we liked it or whether we didn't. It's an uphill battle. When the planning commission is not an elected body, they are an appointed body, appointed by the mayor. And, we as the city commissioners are the ones with the responsibility to make those decisions, not the planning commission, which is why they changed the state law.
Well, I'll invite any of our state delegate here if they want to set me straight on that. I'll open the floor up to them. I've had conversations with both. So, any other questions or comments on this before we vote? All right. All in favor of the ordinance, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Carries on second reading by a vote of 3-2. Next item is 9A2, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022-2023, a budget ordinance 2022-2032 to appropriate funds for construction of the Lebanon Road slip route at Golden Bear Gateway and design a Pleasant Grove Road widening project. Have a motion and a second. I believe the vice mayor wanted to be listed as a co-sponsor on this. Any questions or comments on this? Yes, sir, it is. I think our city attorney has some input for us.
I just want to be clear that any requirement for the developer to contribute anything disappears with this.
Yes. Way to open the wound.
Just trying.
Any other questions or comments before we vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And 9A2 carries. At this point, we'll move to new business, which is item 11A1, an ordinance amending the final master development plan for Providence Central Plan Unit Development to authorize a variance to increase the maximum size of the wall signage for Rooms to Go retail store. A motion and a second. Item is on the table for questions, comments, or discussion. Commissioner Hefner.
I oppose this at the planning commission. 180 square feet meets our sign codes. They're coming in asking for a variance to increase it to 238 square feet, and now all four signs, which I can't tell on this, are they on each elevation, north, south, east, west elevation?
They are.
So I'm going to oppose this. I mean, this is why we have our sign ordinances. I feel like 180 square feet, by the way, which originally it was not 180. They did not qualify for 180 square feet, correct?
They did not.
They did not. So we actually granted them even a waiver, what they were allowed. So I think 180 square feet is fine. It meets our sign ordinance. We don't need a variance. to increase it to 238 feet. The building's right next to the highway, by the way. I mean, 40. But that's my opinion. It's in my district.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's too big.
Anyone else like to speak? Commissioner Mullally?
Initially, when they were asking for the variance, y'all didn't support it. And then I guess they came back. And so you do support.
It's for a smaller sign, but if you don't mind, I'd like would it be okay if Jill Johnson came up to go over their sign package with you? She's here to present that for them
Yes.
tonight. Thank you. On the city.
We
account.
would welcome clarity. And while she's coming, we have our city planner doing double duty tonight as our city recorder.
Just a quick bit of reference on this. They originally did a PUD amendment back in June. They were asking for their two main rooms to go signs to be 238 square feet each. And then their other two signs were rooms to go patio and rooms to go kids. Those were going to be approximately 100 square feet. The planning commission at the time decided they would give them the big box retailer variance, which would allow them to go to 180 square feet, which was fine at the time. That was passed. And then the rooms to go people came back and decided they wanted to do an additional PUD amendment to do the rooms to go patio and rooms to go kids signs at 180 square feet. So that way the entire store has, all the signs are conducive, same size at 180 square feet. So the 238 was taken out. So essentially what this secondary PUD amendment is for all four signs to be 180 square feet, which would meet the variance request within the signed ordinance that allows for a big box retailer. They didn't quite meet that under the signed ordinance as a whole because big box retailers has to be 75,000 square feet in size. But under a PUD amendment, we can grant that variance for them to be considered under the big box because they're at approximately 46,000 square feet.
Do you have any other questions, Commissioner? Vice Mayor?
I think I'm confused here. So it's the combination with the rooms to go sign, the RTG patio and the RTG kids, which is making it go over the ordinance. Is that right? It's a combination of all of it together, or is it just the rooms to go?
Individuals. It's all individual signs, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Individual signs, each one they're wanting to do at 180 square feet each.
So the rooms to
Does that make
go,
sense?
the big rooms to go sign is not more than 180
No,
square feet.
sir. All four are going to be 180. On the north elevation, which is one that is fronting I-40,
Uh-huh.
they will have rooms to go kids, a rooms to go main sign, and then a rooms to go patio. Each of those will be 180 square feet. Then on the south elevation, it's just going to be the rooms to go sign. So each one will be 180 square feet. So it was just to kind of keep it consistent all the way around the building.
They're only allowed 120 square feet
Who is?
per sign
Without the variance.
without the variance.
Without the variance.
Yeah,
okay.
they're allowed 4 wall signs per building. Each one can not exceed 120 square feet unless they're given the variance as a big box retailer, which requires them to be 75,000 square feet. Because they do not meet that 75,000 square feet ratio is why they came in for a PUD amendment to request the variance.
60 square feet, that much for a sign, one way or the other? No.
That's why we recommended it. It's consistent with other businesses in the area and the size of the retailer. And it's something also too we're visiting under the sign ordinance that we're getting ready to revamp to decrease the size, the overall size of what a big box retailer should be, because we're getting more and more of those within the city.
Commissioner Hefner, please.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'm fine with the 180. Originally, it was 238. I just
Yes,
thought
sir.
it was going to be obnoxious.
No, the original PUD amendment was, and that's
Correct.
the reason as staff, we recommended the 180.
Right.
And then they just decided they
But
just
sign
want to do all
ordinance is
4.
sign ordinance is 120 square feet.
Yes, sir, as a norm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's a compromise.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Now, I mean, for me, we're a city that the majority of our revenue comes from cash registers ringing. So if we can get more people off the interstate to shop here, I'm about turned 46 and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So maybe an extra 60 square feet would get me off the interstate. I don't know. Do you have anything to add, Commissioner?
No.
All right.
Thank you for clarifying that.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this? All in favor of the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Yeah, I know, whippersnapper. Oh, well, I will everybody says you hit 40 your eyes, and I was like, I made it 5 more years and no problems, and then it's like hit 45, and it's just like all the print got really small all of a sudden. The next item is 11A2, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 5.64 acres, property known as Tate Lane from West Division Street north up to and including the road in front of 1407 Tate Lane and located within the city's urban growth boundary. Have a motion? I'll second. Questions or comments on this one?
Yeah.
Vice Mayor?
I've looked for every reason in the world why we should be annexing Tate Lane, any part of Tate Lane, but it goes back to 2014. And I've got some questions involved in this also. We're talking about taking in Tate Lane and for the Lynn Haven section over here. And I've been told several times that there's no way that they connected to Due West Drive, that they can't connect to Due West Drive. But I'm still seeing through the GIS system that there is a right of way that would allow them to go into that cul-de-sac and come out on Due West Drive. My folks are the Due West Drive folks that do not want any connection to this. I also have found out through this whole process that it's not necessary for us to annex any part of this. There's no reason for it. The people who live on the road don't want it. Yeah, the people who are building the subdivision don't need it. And it's a liability for us. It takes money out of us. It does not add anything to us. The only thing that it would possibly favor would be the one development that's going to be built on it. Other than that, nothing. So I can't see why there's any kind of a valid reason for annexing. It doesn't make any sense to me. Is it going to make it a little more convenient for them to build? Well, yeah, but that's not our job. Our job is not to provide a developer a convenience. Our job is to make sure that the residents of the city of Mount Juliet are taken care of. And, whether we like it, Jim Hunter and Linda Tate and the rest of those folks, they're residents. They were here a long time before we were. We need to take care of them.
Commissioner Mullally?
Yeah, I have several things, so we might have to circle back around. So this one was a hard one for me. I talked to several of the residents, and so I really appreciate all y'all's input. Talked to Andy. So when you're in this seat, you have to weigh it out and figure out what's best for everyone, and specifically the city, since we're city commissioners. So, but it's still hard. Honestly, I didn't know how I was going to vote till I came in here tonight. So just some general statements and questions. Mr. Ligon, I think it's interesting what you bring up, that the property owners own to the middle of the road. So I think that's a concern. I assume the construction entrance here would be Tate. Okay. Now the left turn lane that, Andy, you say the county is going to require, is that coming from the north? And they think there's enough traffic coming from the north to put in a left turn lane?
They basically, from the county's requirements, it's a standard of care for any development. Doesn't matter what road it's on, the left turn lane is required.
River, can you put up that next image? All right, there's the city. The brown is the city limits and the green is the county. So the annexation would go up to the driveway there at 1404. No, Google Maps, my iPhone map lied to me as far as actually where it was, but that's where the annexation ends right there. So in the ordinance where it talks about 5.64 acres of property, I was confused. If you're talking about a road, are you referring to the road as property?
Well, yes, basically. I mean, but it's public property. So it's owned by the county today, and we would just be assuming that ownership.
So that 2,600 whatever feet is 5 acres of property?
Mhm. Yeah, it's generally about 50 foot wide times that length.
Huh, that was interesting. I don't understand why Due West was taken out of the connection. I don't get that. I know that because Rob Porter said when phase 1 was built, that easement was left there for the connection. So I don't understand why that was eliminated. And someone brought up, why would the city approve a development with no city connection? So that doesn't make sense to me. And where or what was phase 2? I never could figure that out.
So phase 2, if you see up on the map, it's hard to see with the lines on the screen here, but basically you take existing, Lynn Haven Court right there, where it goes in. There's a little roundabout traffic circle there where Due West intersects with Lynn Haven Court. That's all phase 1. Everything on Lynn Haven Court is phase 1, and phase 2 is basically everything west of that, which you see it's vacant land. Absent, I think there were 3 lots that were subdivided out of that are now built on that are outside this project. But the remainder of that is all phase 2. And so phase 1 was built, I think it was probably subdivided, say about 2008, 2007, 2008. So it was approved then, and phase 2 was done around the time I got to the city in 2014. And it was probably one of my first planning commission meetings I can recall. So I do remember the questions on the connectivity. There is an existing right of way that was platted a long time ago, but you see the phase 2 approval came in after that, and so the phase 2 approved plans, all the vesting of everything completely eliminates that connection to Due West. So there is no connection, period, by any vesting rights whatsoever for that connection. Yeah. So basically, the way phase 2 is approved, there is prohibited to connect to Due West. Despite the fact there's a right of way stub there will be lots and no right of way backing up to that.
I don't get that. The church annexation, which you said you used that as one of the points to annex, where you said that they might want to annex at some point in case they wanted sewer in the future. But then the conflicting reports is church staff said no. It was an adamant no, that they have no intention of annexing or connecting to sewer. The sidewalks are not wanted by county residents. Let's see. And from what I gather, from what the residents are saying, the 2 biggest fears is they're going to take the Century Farms. The city's going to take the Century Farms and connect to Benton Douglas as a connection. So that was one of the big fears. And the other is the Western Connector, which honestly, that to me, it doesn't make sense to have Tate as the Western Connector, but I know that all that's going to be considered. So I was just curious because I couldn't make it that night. The 2 on the planning commission voted against this, and I didn't have time to go back and watch the video to see if they gave input, what their reasons were. So I don't know, but I am interested in what that would be. And I really don't know why phase 3 of Lynn Haven was approved if all these problems, if you knew all these problems on the county road existed. I don't get that. So so if this doesn't annex, the project is still required to do the sidewalks and get that easement for the right of way, the sidewalks within their property, because it's on the property. It's not outside the property. So they're still required to do the sidewalks within the development, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So if you look at the green area under the brown, which is where the phase 3 is going, all that's the church property, which goes all the way down to the park south. So, and they evidently have no intentions. So I agree with the residents. I don't see the importance of annexing this right now, so I'm not going to support it. I don't think the timing of it is good, and I agree with Joan about a deferral to wait after the results of the Western Connector come in and then see. I could see it at a later point, maybe if the church at some point down the road did want to annex or get sewer and annex. I could see it then. But I tell you what I would support, and that is to annex the road just to the north of the park so that we can control the traffic. And I would like to see like the curbing to keep people from turning right. Now, you point out that people are going to do what they're going to do. And yeah, Aldi's right there is a perfect example. But at least it would be there and be a somewhat of a deterrent, is along with the signage, no right turns or no northbound traffic and whatever. So that's what I would be willing to support, is annexing it just north of the park with the curbing and the signage.
Yeah, I think one of the things I know from talking with Shane, if the church is adamantly opposed to sewer, that's 180 degrees from what they've told us. They actually requested to connect to the sewer in the park. Shane, how long ago was that? A couple months ago? Yeah, 2-3 months ago. So that's fairly recent time frame for when they asked us. In fact, they were going to pay us to extend the sewer so that they could connect to it. So that's the discussion that we've had with the church thus far. So that's a complete turnaround from what conversations we've had. Yes. Okay. Shane stated that they did not want to annex at this time. They weren't going to connect to sewer at this time. They just wanted to have the option to connect in the future while we were doing construction of the park. So just to make that clear, they weren't asking for sewer right now. And I think as far as the roadway itself, I think one of the options is out there. We do plan on having the public meetings in November, early November, for the Western Connector projects and alignments and what that's going to look like. So I wouldn't be opposed to looking at it at the time that we set those alignments, because when we're talking about this Western Connector project, or what that's going to look like and the alignments that it could connect to, there will be impacts. Somebody's going to be impacted, and so we have to make that decision and see what that's going to look like, what the roadway connection is going to be. I mean, we don't have to annex this to connect to the road and take a road up to Benton Douglas. I mean, this can all stay county, and we can still build a road between the two, and that road be a city roadway. So annexation doesn't prohibit that per se. I just think it's better to have one contiguous alignment, all be in the city, if we ever did get to that point. Again, this is all conjecture. This is nothing saying this anything of what we want to do. I think it's an option to explore. But we would look at that at that time. So I think from a timing perspective, there's no magic. If we wanted to wait till November to look at this, I mean, I don't think there's anything. There's nothing from my side of this that states, the construction on Lynn Haven is going to keep on going. We've had the pre-construction meeting on that. It's going to take them several months. It's going to take them way past this fall to get moving and get infrastructure in the ground, and what that could look like for them. So, as far as that's concerned, that's way out there in the future. I mean, that's probably a next year decision for them, and what that could do to impact that development. So, this is not something that necessarily has to be a today decision. I believe this first reading. Is that correct?
This is correct. That's correct.
First reading. You know, it could be a scenario if we wanted to defer until we went through the discussion on that. That's a possibility. If we wanted to defer until there was another catalyst that came along, I think that's another possibility as well.
Well,
That's all I had.
do you have a comment? Commissioner Trevette hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, if it's okay. First of all, thanks to all the families that came out tonight to not support this. There's been some other developments that actually came through, that have been annexed, or some folks that have not wanted to get that. And I always go back to that same question, which is, why are you not wanting to look at the services? Obviously, on the first responder side, yes, there's always that option where WEMA, can, pick up. Mount Juliet will help out. There's another thing that I look at is the pockets, within the city. We've got a lot of little pockets that are not part of the city. They're still county. So I always look at just making sure, because again, I always look at safety, obviously, making sure that we can give the best product out there. And, tonight, obviously, with the residents, last thing I'd want to do as a homeowner is force something down somebody's throat. So tonight, obviously I'm not in support of it, but I would ask that the residents do look at what options that the city can offer you. Yes, it's a couple dollars within taxes, but at the same time, you're looking at, with what you've seen tonight with the first responders, the ISO, certifications, the insurance, value, when it comes to covering your home and so forth. There's so many other options. And I understand, but I ask everybody as a county resident to look at, what are the pros and cons. With our city manager mentioned tonight, with the trash pickup, obviously, yes, the city wants to go ahead and be a good servant of our community. And when you look at, people dropping things off on your property, you're frustrated, you're mad, who's the first person that most people call? They call the city because they think they're part of the city or they're within that area. So please just take all these things into consideration. If it does get brought back up in the future, look at what options are the pros and cons. Mr. Barlow, I do have one quick question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So with the Lynn Haven, are they looking at any type of traffic study? Because I have not seen that in a packet. I have not seen any type of, obviously some future projections.
The thresholds for the traffic study are this development is basically well below those thresholds. Because it's the number of homes. I can't remember the total number, but like 20, 30 something.
You've got a good support team behind you,
yeah.
Mr. Barlow.
I'm gonna hire y'all. But 36 homes, so it's well below the threshold. Generally speaking, you got to get well over 50, 60 homes to trigger a traffic study. So there's no traffic study been done on that one, but it's more or less just taking it at general face value for the project.
And I just want to mention one thing, because you had brought this up, just for that potential turning lane. What is the projected cost? Just want to make sure that's on record.
I'd say it's probably 75,000 would be a decent estimate.
Okay. And how many feet you think that's going to be roughly?
Depending on what the county would require, I don't know. Their requirements maybe 50 foot plus tapers. So
okay,
maybe 150, 200 foot total.
And that has not been enforced or requested at this time, correct?
No.
I just know it was brought up tonight, so I just want to make sure I get
Right.
my clarification.
Yep.
In case something changed. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barlow.
Yep.
Yeah. Vice Mayor.
Oh, yeah. I'm unclear about something. I've still not got the answer to this question. What prompted this?
It was a collection of a few different things. It was the Lynn Haven development coming through along at the same time that Victory Baptist had made the request for extension of the sewer with a potential future connection there, and then also the city park coming close to the completion. So we felt like with all that stuff coming into play, that then you've got the entire one half side of the road over here. And then from an emergency standpoint and just overall services standpoint, if we have one half of the road in the city, then it would behoove us from that aspect to go ahead and annex the roadway.
Okay. I want to make sure that whatever we do, we need to close this tonight. But we've got people who have been worried about this for months now. There's no reason for this to be ongoing. I do want to make sure that it's clear also, there is absolutely no way anybody's connecting to Due West and coming out on Due West on the Mount Juliet Road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioner Mayor, if I may direct this to her, the reason for that is that road is not built for any additional level of traffic. So anybody who comes out up there and comes out right beside, I think it's Birthright Title. And
Excuse me.
no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Due West. So if they come out and they get to that location, they cannot take a left because it's virtually impossible because the amount of traffic is on the road. It is just dangerous trying to pull over because of the hill right there. Coming out off of Due West onto Mount Juliet Road, that's the reason that there is not a connection being made to that. And it's the reason that they stopped it. I think myself, I think we all saw that when they tried to bring it up to begin with, and we stopped it before it got started. So that's the reason for no connection. It's because the connectivity may be great, but the end road, when you wind up trying to pull out onto the road, get somebody killed in the process, it doesn't outweigh the risk doesn't outweigh the reward.
Yeah, if I remember that night, I don't think we required sidewalks back then. I think we waived that requirement, and I think they've come back with something since. Is that why sidewalks are in there?
I recall the sidewalks at that time. I remember the planning commission had a very lengthy discussion on the sidewalks being on Tate Lane, which is a county roadway. So the solution to that was, and still is today, that they will do a reservation of right of way, build the sidewalk within that reservation. And if and when that roadway does get annexed by the city, we would then assume that reserved area. And then basically we have the sidewalk at the same time.
Yeah. And I will say too, Commissioner, back when that was passed, there was there's no traffic plan. There was no vote on there's traffic plan, but not the one we currently have. There's no vote on connectivity. I mean, that right now our basic policy as a city is connectivity. It didn't exist at the time. I'd also say, and I've heard a lot of people speak tonight on this. I hear your comments. I hear the fears that you say that, we'll take your farms or your land or something, annex it and force our way through it. To me, I suppose that's possible, but there's no action or no plans for anybody I know. And annexing or not annexing this road doesn't change. You have the same risk either way. If somebody was willing enough to take Century Farms to court and everything else and condemn your property, it's not a giant step forward just to take in a small section of road along the way. But I hear your concerns, but I don't think that precludes either action about a future board, whether this is annexed or not annexed into the city. I am trying to hear the pros of doing this too, and I'm trying to weigh them against each other on this. Anyone else comments, questions? Commissioner Mullally.
So Vice Mayor, you said that was taken out. Was that phase 2? According to what Andy said, the Due West was taken out in phase 2.
That's correct. Yeah.
So if the road was an issue, why was it approved in phase 1 to allow that easement for a future connection? So that's what I'm not getting, I guess.
That was stop asking about phase 1. It's before my time
Yeah,
on that
so
one. So
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Let me,
Vice Mayor.
they brought that in actually, and they come in and they put that easement going up to that piece of property with the addition that they were going to develop that someday. And that was one of the things that's when we actually stopped it and prohibited it. There's an easement that goes through there, but they were not going to be allowed to use that. Now, I don't know what that looks like on paper, but that was the way we voted and approved it. I haven't looked at the actual PUD ordinance that created it to begin with,
I actually remember that right away being there already from the Wilson property. So it was there previously before that phase 1 was developed, and I think they were just trying to utilize that in the development. I actually think that was included in the Wilson property previous to the final master development plan for phase 1. I think that right of way was already there. And so when that phase 2 came in is when it was closed because we felt like it was Due West was underserved and not safe to travel.
And
Pull
right.
the microphone closer too.
It's basically what it amounted to was that the fact that we were going to have to go in, somebody was going to have to widen and improve Due West Drive all the way up, and there would probably have to be a red light, all kinds of improvements made. And that was 2005.
A long time ago.
Yeah, 2004, 2005, when I think when that came in. And all that was discussed, but there was discussed that there would be no connection to Due West Drive at that point because it was not feasible. As I said, the risk did not outweigh the reward that we wound up getting.
And I say to everybody in attendance out there, and I know it's definitely not hard to go look at a map and you see the stub out there at Benton Douglas going right into Mr. Liggins' there farm. And I know we've talked on the phone about this. It shows it on the map. And just because it shows it on the transportation plan is not engineered drawings that the city is going to put a road through your property. That we have to draw those as part of planning. If, forgive me, Mr. Liggins, if your property was ever to develop in the future and you decided you want a subdivision there, I know, I totally understand. But we have to put those, we have to draw those on the maps just as part of the planning process. Else it becomes very difficult to enforce it when somebody does develop land, and then the cost of that development falls back on the taxpayers. And I know too that you can look at that map and you can see the continued portion of Tate Lane here, and you don't have to even be a good artist. You can just draw it right over to that stub out. And you can see it going right through the Tate property, right through Mr. Liggins and what was the Zimbro property. Probably your best protection against anything actually happening over there for as a Western connector has inadvertently created additional traffic for you, but it may be the salvation as far as anything going through there is by the subdividing of the Zimbro property, which would create great obstacles for anything ever happening in the future. Plus, you, to your point, you have the state law that's been changed. The city may not enforce annexation on you without your request. Else, it would be, I don't know if there's a path forward through the courts on that. I guess we have to condemn, buy land. I don't even know how you proceed on that. But also pointed out, we do have engineering design work coming forward on this. I say all that to say, I see value in taking the road on this. I also see a little value in waiting on this and seeing where it stands on it. But the road, city road, county road, Georgia road, it doesn't change any of the fact that that could be quickly annexed in the future if it become part of the project. So if it fails tonight, I mean, I'm not trying to cast fear on you. It doesn't change the ultimate outcome. If somebody was willing to go to court, state law changes and a bunch of other ifs, thens, and buts lined up. But it's on this, I think I know where you were going on this. So if anybody else has got a comment, question, motion, Mr. Hefner.
Yeah, I want to thank the folks from Tate Lane for coming out and meeting with me last week. Very much appreciated. I got a feeling this is going to fail tonight, and I'm all in favor of failing it. So.
We ready to vote? All in favor of 11A2, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed to 11A2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. With that, this fails on first reading. You won't get the joy of coming back to us for second reading because it will not be a set reading. I don't know who's playing Monday Night Football, but probably so. All right, the next item on the thank you. The next item on the agenda is 11A3, an ordinance to rezone the property known as Cunningham property located at 615 Rutland Drive, map 78, parcel 10.07 from single family residential RS40 to commercial mixed use CMU. Got a motion? Hearing no motion, this fails for lack of a motion and second. 11A4, an ordinance to rezone approximately 6.0 72 acres of property on Pleasant Grove Road, map 76, parcel 40, from RS 40 to RS 20 to commercial mixed use plan unit development CMU PUD, and to amend the preliminary master development plan for the village at Pleasant Grove. Motion is second. We get the item on the floor. Who would like to be recognized first? I see Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor. Would like to add under planning and zoning recommendations, it wasn't added, but it is under waivers and variances, that the ornamental fence along the Tillman property line would be added to the conditions, planning and zoning conditions. So that would be number 27. Also, Public Works.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, just a point of clarification on here.
Sure.
You said number 27 or add a number 28?
Mine shows a 26. So I'd be adding a new 27.
What's interesting, unless I'm on the wrong page, I've got a 27.
11A, 4A.
Well, the first section is 26, and the second section is 27, included with the ordinance. And the ordinance is actually called
I'll provide a 6-foot ornamental fence along the Tillman property line. Fence can meander to aid in tree protection, and it's also noted on their PMDP that was passed out tonight to y'all. So I think it's captured.
Got it. I think I'm confused because you're trying to amend number 26, not add one.
That's correct.
Okay. I was gonna say that would be 28 then.
That's correct.
And I actually even have it highlighted here, so.
Oh, do you?
That's even worse.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing. I do have a couple more I want to add. This is under Public Works, 11A, 4C, 1A, B, and C. Those items to be completed prior to the first CO. Public Works, 1D. Those to be installed at 50 percentile. And Public Works 2A and B, both to be completed at 50 percentile.
So clarify, that's Public Works under 1D, 50th percentile, and then under 2, which is A and B, 50th percentile.
Correct. That's it.
And would you repeat too, number 26, what you were proposing under planning and zoning? Did we need a change on that one?
Let me look.
Commissioner
Correct.
Hefner,
Yeah,
it's
we do not.
included in the
Yeah,
ordinance.
you're correct. Yeah.
It's not included in the staff report is what he was referencing.
Okay.
So retract that addition of the fencing.
Okay. Then I'll second your motion to amend under Public Works 1D, the 50th percentile, and under Public Works 2, A and B to also trigger at the 50th percentile. Did I state that correctly?
You did. But also 1A, B, and C to be completed prior to the first CO.
Okay. And 1A, B, and C prior to the first certificate of occupancy.
Correct.
Yes, I'm in agreement. I believe you stated it the first time and I just didn't write it down. Any questions or comments on the amendment? I think our Public Works Director is looking like he has something to say.
Yeah, just, I guess a point of clarification on this, because this is an amendment to the PUD, the original PUD. Is the request for the first CO for the Pleasant Grove Road improvements, is that for the first CO of the entire PUD or of phase 2?
Yes. Thanks for asking that.
Okay.
Phase 2.
Okay, good. And I note that
Matt just
because-
took a.
And I note that because we're ready to stamp the construction plans on phase 1. Like we've submitted final comments, and basically we're ready to stamp and approve and get them going.
I knew exactly where you were going when you said
Mhm.
that, when you
That was-
started.
those 2 dates will be very different dates.
Yes.
Plus, we have another reading too.
Sure. Any questions or comments on this amendment? Are we ready to vote? All right, the amendment is on Public Works 1A, B, and C. Those will be completed prior to the first CO issued in phase 2. And number D to be completed at the 50th percentile. Under 2, A and B to be completed at the 50th percentile. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Commissioner, you have the floor.
Oh, no, I'm good.
No?
Sorry, I was voting.
No. I
Oh.
just saying you still had it.
No.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Mullally?
I know the playground was taken care of, but what about the clubhouse? Was that part of the omission along with the playground?
They have plenty of open space in lieu of that 2,000 square foot minimum on the amenity center. I believe it's 5,200 square feet is what you're providing. So they.
Okay. All right. Now on the townhomes, on both sections, they're for sale. They're for rent. Okay. So that takes care of that. Now, did you do the blasting thing at the first PUD? You did. Okay. All right. So if there's 12 buildings and 4 are townhomes, that leaves 8 for apartments.
Double check.
Could you straighten that mic out a little bit so it's facing you? Thank you,
Thank
sir.
You. We have 6 multifamily buildings, multifamily flats buildings, and 4 townhouse buildings. The rest are retail and office.
Okay. And on those, how many 3-bedroom are you?
That is in the notes. We have the townhouses are 3 bedrooms plus 11. I think 22, if I'm looking at this correctly, is what we're looking at as being 3 bedrooms.
That includes townhomes and
The
apartments?
townhomes would be an additional 20. So
All right, so
20, so that'd be 42.
42
Yes, ma'am.
total?
Total in the whole project.
Over both sections?
Over both phases, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. That's all I have.
Right. Anyone else? We ready to vote on this on first reading? Are you just saying you're ready to vote? Gotcha. Just point out number 3 says for off-site improvements, the developer is to make a due diligence to require those necessary easements on the easements and right of way. So that's captured in here. So I just want to point that out for the record. It's here. And other than that, I think we're ready to vote on the ordinance as once amended. All in favor of this PUD amendment on first reading as once amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries on first reading. This will skip the next meeting, and I think our first meeting of next month lands on Columbus Day. So that would put us back at the second meeting of October.
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is 11A5, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance 2022-32 to accept insurance proceeds and appropriate funds for repair of traffic signal. Motion? It's on the table. Any questions, comments, discussion? All in favor of the ordinance as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 11A5 carries. 11A6, an ordinance to reestablish a Mount Juliet Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, BPAC. Have a motion and a second. This is under your sponsorship, Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir. I want to make sure that something is extremely clear here. This is not hometown politics, okay? Hometown politics. That's not what this is. Matter of fact, this what I'm talking about doing here. Art Giles, who was one of those that started this whole committee, is in my district now. And I have absolutely no problem in him being my representative going back on there. This has nothing to do with any politics at all. I can't think of anybody better to represent the BPAC committee than Art Giles would be. Don't have a problem with that. What this does, though, it kind of cleans up the fact that we don't have a committee out there that is appointing their own members without the individual commissioners having their say in the representation coming out of the district. That's what this, and by the way, I don't know if you realize this or not, but your presence on there being appointed by us means that you have 3 votes in your district on the BPAC committee for the voting members, that is. And this has nothing to do with the committee itself, just has to do with the voting members of the committee. So the changes that I've made, all voting members shall reside within the city limits of the city of Mount Juliet. And they will be, chairperson shall be the Board of Commissioners appointee to the BPAC. The mayor will appoint 4 voting members with each of his or her picks coming from each of the 4 districts. And then each district commissioner will appoint a person from their district as a voting member. The voting members shall serve staggered terms with their term expiring with the term of the elected official that made the appointment. So if you get reelected in November, the person that you appoint will be on there for the next 4 years. Their appointment will stay on there as long as you're on there. What? Yes, ma'am. There was one other item, and I think Andy Barlow was still in the room. One of the items that we had talked about the BPAC and the grants. There have been 2 or 3 grants that have been issued to the city. We applied for them based on BPAC. Those grants came in, and we wound up, if we had done the project ourselves, it would have cost less. But because we got a TDOT grant, I think is what it was, it wound up, because of the regulations that were involved in that, it wound up costing the city more for the same product that we could have gotten just being a local project with our engineers doing the work. And I think we had talked about, Mr. Barlow, I think we had said $750,000 was kind of that in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So any budgeted items, and I didn't see this number on here, but I had wanted to put it in, any budgeted items recommended by BPAC in excess, is that the way we would word this, in excess of $750,000?
What are you talking about? That
The
they
grants.
They would only apply for those in excess of the 700?
No. Shall be submitted to the Parks and Greenways Board for a positive or negative recommendation to the Board of Commissioners prior to the budgeted item being considered by the Board of Commissioners. So another set of eyes to go through that and look at it and to make sure that we're not going to go out here and spend $1.7 million for $800,000 sidewalk. One of our sidewalks, and I call it the drunken sidewalk on Charlie Daniels Parkway down here, that the one that does this wound up costing us a fortune. And it was all because it was a grant. If we had done a straight sidewalk, it probably would have cost us $80,000, but instead it was around $450,000 or so. We don't need to be spending taxpayers' money like that. And so it's just going to set up another set of eyes that'll look at that. And the BPAC committee would make a recommendation to the Parks and Greenways Board and then bring it over to us. I believe that's it, Mayor. There's not any other changes.
Did you, Director Barlow's answer clarify everything?
Was I correct in that, in what I'm saying, the $750,000?
Yeah,
Mark.
that's generally, and since, I will say this, since I've been here, we've only had one project that we applied for that was underneath that amount. We abandoned that grant, that was the one, the sidewalk connection up to the high school, Mount Juliet High School along Golden Bear, from Stone Hollow. That was the one that we did. We actually got some money from the school. They actually donated a similar grant amount for that, and we ended up taking the rest of it with city funds and doing that. But
So should that be higher now? I mean, inflation with everything else is kind of,
I think it's a general amount, and because it depends. I mean, your total project amount might be well more than that, but if the construction's over 750,000, then it's worth it. Yeah, we in general, I mean, we're not going to go after a project unless it's significant enough in amount, because we realize time is an issue as well. And so if we could build it, within a couple of years, and we could build it at 50% of the cost, well, then, okay, if we're talking about projects that are a few $100,000, that's easy for us to knock out a few of those. But if we're talking about a project that's going to be $1 million, it's got permitting and everything else that's got to go through it, then it's probably worth it. Or some of the ones that are outside out of mind kind of projects. I will say one thing, I think, as far as from our perspective on the grant applications, oftentimes sometimes, I mean, there's a decent window for applications on some of these, but in order to try to identify a project that we want to go for, we ultimately bring everything. We want a resolution brought to this board. This board is the ultimate oversight of the finances. And so therefore, we're not going to apply for a grant out there without taking it first from the BPAC as sort of a recommendation body to this board. And then this is a resolution that we then attach to our grant application. So if we had a third level, sometimes I'll say that from a timing standpoint, that really gets to be with the timing that all of our boards meet, BPAC, Parks Greenways, BOC. By the time you stack all those together, you got to have everything aligning pretty good, or we might be scrambling a little bit for trying to get an application in on time.
Would we set like a policy, like general policy, like 750K or above? That accomplish?
I think it does. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we won't wind up our 20% or whatever it may be, or
Right.
our 50% matching portion, whatever grant that we get, doesn't wind up costing more than it would to actually build.
Yeah. I agree.
And we've had that happen numerous times. So
And you make a good point. And just for people watching, if you want to give us $500,000, we're not opposed to it. But at the same time, these grants generally come with a number of strings with it that, like what the director is saying here, is that it does not, the juice is not worth the squeeze when you get to it with all the paperwork and the tape and all the extra requirements around it. Like that. Do you have anything else, Vice Mayor?
no, I'm just thinking right now of the Lebanon Road widening project. Immediately jumps into my head. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Mullally.
All right. First, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that I absolutely do not support this attempt to completely reestablish the Mount Juliet BPAC. It's a total revamp. I was appointed almost 2 years ago to serve on this committee as the BOC representative and carry out the duties as defined in the 2013 ordinance. And that's what I have done and will continue to do. It states that the BOC appointed rep shall nominate the voting members to be voted on by this board, which we finally accomplished at the last meeting. Since then, BPAC has met, approved our past minutes, and was able to finalize last-minute details of our walk, run, and roll event this coming Sunday. So I will defend Mount Juliet BPAC and those who serve on it. Why? Because it works. It is not broken, and therefore does not need fixing. There is nothing to fix, and you cannot convince me otherwise. You cannot justify how your changes would make BPAC function better, gain more recognition, qualify for more grants, nor can you justify any legitimate, valid reasons, in my opinion, for changing it. The Mount Juliet BPAC has stood on its own merits as it was established to do for 9 years now. So during these 9 years, the Mount Juliet BPAC has played a significant role in helping the city obtain at least $11.4 million in grant funding for sidewalks and greenways. There is a discussion at the end of this agenda to introduce another grant opportunity. The city of Mount Juliet has been repeatedly recognized as having its own BPAC and continues to do so. The Mount Juliet BPAC was just awarded, as I pointed out in my commissioner comment time, by a majority vote to receive a Streets for People award by Walk Bike Nashville for the most walkable, bikeable Middle Tennessee project. Having said that, here are some 6 reasons your proposals are a problem for the future of BPAC. 1, if the mayor and each commissioner appoint their own choices to make up this committee of 9 voting members, what is the point or the purpose of having a BOC representation to serve on the committee other than just being the chair that leads the meetings, as your ordinance points out? This isn't the case on the Parks Board and the Parks and Greenway Board. Commissioner Trevette is the BOC appointed rep on that board, and he's not the chair. Commissioner Hefner is the appointed BOC rep on the Planning Commission, and he's not the chair. So why the BOC? Hold on, I'm switching pages. The way it works is BPAC voting members nominate and vote on its own chair, like the other organizations, not the BOC. So what is your plan as a board member to attract people? So let's say that you do get to appoint your own people. What is your plan as a board member to attract people to BPAC so that you can have someone to nominate? Are you going to go out and knock on doors, make phone calls, send emails? Do you really have 10,000 phone numbers and emails? Will you post to Facebook? What about those who don't do social media, including Nextdoor and Instagram? Is anyone on this board even on Nextdoor and Instagram? What if a Mount Juliet resident had a passion to serve on BPAC and they come to you willingly and with excitement, but they live in the county with a Mount Juliet address? Are you really going to turn them down? Because what would be your reason to deny? I'm sorry, your passion isn't wanted here because you don't live in the city. How unfortunate for you. What if you can't find anyone willing to serve? Then what? What's your backup plan? If you do find someone to appoint, you would have that person's ear of influence that could potentially open the door to political influence rather than passion. Point being, this committee is driven by those with passion, those who have a passion for a walkable, bikeable city. Seek out committees such as BPAC, Walk Bike Nashville, and others. We have 1 voting member on BPAC currently who moved to Mount Juliet because we had a BPAC. Most everyone currently serving has been involved for many years already. Number 2, we have 1 BOC member who has stated on at least 2 different occasions that he doesn't care about sidewalks, only roads. So why should a BOC member who doesn't have the same vision for a walkable, bikeable city be allowed to appoint someone to a committee that has everything to do with sidewalks and greenways? Number 3, why should BOC members be allowed to appoint their own people to this committee when the board members themselves aren't even involved with BPAC? How many meetings have you bothered to attend just to find out what we do? How many events have you been to and been involved in the planning process? How many of those events have you participated in? So why should you get to appoint your own people? I know the mayor has participated in several over the years, and Commissioner Trevette might bring his son on Sunday. Vice Mayor, I think years and years ago, you attended one where your daughter might have even won a bicycle.
Yep, let's keep the comments focused on general, not each other.
Okay. So
tag me.
They are generalize. Has anyone on this board actually met with any BOC BPAC member, voting or otherwise, to get their feedback on what you're trying to do? Why don't you come to a BPAC meeting and tell the members to their face about the changes that you're proposing? You are all invited to come participate Sunday in our walk, run, and roll event on the 18th, and I encourage BOC participation. You want to make changes? Then show you care by being involved like the mayor has done consistently over the years. Number 4, what do you really care, and what does it really matter what the staggered terms are of each voting member? Why does that matter to you? It works like it is according to the original ordinance in 2013. It is not broken. Number 5 references your letter C about the budget for budget items that you're proposing. I don't see how this is relevant because BPAC doesn't spend budgeted money. First off, BPAC doesn't have the authority to spend money, and we aren't included in the budget to begin with that I know of. BPAC has Friends of BPAC, which is a 501c3 nonprofit to help raise money for additional sidewalk greenway sections and or projects. Now, the last one, number 6. So having said that, if this is an attempt to shift the approval process of BPAC grants under the authority of the Mount Juliet Parks and Greenways Board, that is just wrong. What this would mean is that before any grant funding is approved, the Parks Board would have to approve it before coming to the BOC approval, whereas currently it comes straight to the BOC for approval. After, of course, Public Works has done their work. So that would do nothing but create another level of bureaucracy that we don't need. This is what you call another set of eyes. BPAC is under the governing authority of this board and only this board. And besides, as Andy pointed out, usually these grants are time sensitive. The Parks Board meets every other month. So we could potentially miss out on a lot. The Mount Juliet BPAC has nothing to do with the Parks Board and should not be under their jurisdiction for any reason, grants or otherwise. If that were to happen, that would basically make BPAC a subcommittee. We hold events in city parks, and that's it. The Parks Department is kind enough to loan us their canopy tents, tables, and chairs at our events, as well as set them up, and we express much appreciation for that. Now, because of this, you may not vote to reappoint me as the BOC rep in November, but if you don't, I think it would be viewed as purely political, because otherwise there would be no reason not to. And bottom line is, why now? Why not 2 years ago when I was appointed to the BOC rep, to be the BOC rep on BPAC? None of your proposed changes will benefit BPAC or the city. Anyone that knows anything about this knows that, yes, it is political. And that's the only reason we're even having this discussion now.
Okay. Commissioner Hefner, did you want to be recognized?
Yes, please. Question for the Vice Mayor. When would these changes go into effect? Second reading. So anybody that's in office now, or we would have an opportunity to come back and provide our name for an appointee? Take us to the timelines. Okay. So is there a period of 30 days, 45 days, 60 days?
We could establish that through policy here.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything written in here because that would be the only.
Yeah, because I didn't see a timeline on when this went into effect. So,
I mean, to come back in and have, like I said, I mean, my pick is already there, so I'm not going to. I don't have.
And mine may be there as well. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I guess I was kind of on the fence, to be honest with you. But after your 15 minutes rant, I'm in favor of having an appointee. And I honestly, I'm gonna take offense to you taking offense at me wanting to, or any of these members of this board, to put an appointee on BPAC as a voting member. I don't understand or comprehend your logic and reasoning by that being some kind of political ploy. Just absolutely blows my mind that something as simple as me having the ability to appoint somebody on BPAC is somehow some conspiracy political ploy. That just takes it to a whole new level for me. So anyway, it's very simple. We're not reestablishing anything. As I'm reading these changes, the vice mayor is asking in his ordinance to allow each district commissioner to appointee. Again, I'm blown away by your comments. Also, you're appointed as the chairperson of BPAC. Are you the chairperson? When we voted as this board, you were appointed as the chairman. And you tried to come back and change the minutes to reflect otherwise, and that didn't go through. So
I think we did that under the assumption that was in the ordinance, but I believe, and normal city recorder is not here, and I don't think our planning director has looked through it, but we discovered that wasn't a requirement. So,
and that's fine. If you don't want to be the chairman, I have no problems with that. But I want the ability to appoint someone from District 3 as a voting member of BPAC, and it may be the individual that's there now. I think it's fair. And I think given that, the term should coincide with each district and mayor's term of office in the event that there's a change over there. So I think it's pretty simple. I think you're overcomplicating things and looking way too much into things.
thank you, sir. Commissioner Trevette, did you have anything to add before I jump in?
Sure. So, thank you, Mayor. Obviously, yes, Commissioner Mullally, I actually did reach out to BPAC, to a few folks. And I do appreciate what you did go into some details. Yes, it was long-winded, but there was so much information. For myself, it was an eye-opening, really, because if we do look at, the way the Planning Commission, the parks, does everybody live in the county? Does everybody live in the city? No. Some people do, some people don't. And that to me was eye-opener, because I just assumed, and that's my problem back then, was I assumed that everybody was part of the city. So for me, it was something that I did learn that, hey, just because you live in the county, you still have somewhat of a voice. And at the end of the day, BPAC, because I did talk to Mr. Barlow, with that $11 million plus that BPAC was, able to help with the city. That is something that BPAC did do, and that was something confirmed by Mr. Barlow, and that was, again, educational for me. So, I always do look back. Absolutely, yes, I would love to be able to point somebody, that's in my district. Absolutely, and obviously moving forward, that'd be something that I would love to be able to make sure that I communicate that with BPAC and say, hey, listen, if you have somebody coming off the board, out of those 9 people, that's something that I would like to look at. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those things of, this is such I would say a niche within our city. We've got the parks. Yeah, there is some concerns there with the scheduling. But at the end of the day, this board has the ability to say yes or no, and also to align that with Mr. Barlow's, to make sure it's within our budget. So for me, it's kind of one of those things of, if we tend to, I hate to use this, this way to say this, if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. There's so many other things that I personally want to work towards. And this city has a lot of other things that are going on with the first responders, making sure that we meet the ISO, the new firehouses, the ambulance. Personally, for me right now, I think BPAC is doing a great job. They brought $11+ million to the city. I think right now, I've got, a lot of other things that I want to focus on. So for me, if this comes up next year, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, let's reconsider it. But right now, I think the city has a lot more things that we got to be focusing on, and first responding is my biggest thing for right now. So, Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I've taken a lot of look at this, and just to back up a little bit before we're at this point with the ordinance, there were some concerns, and I think they were very legitimate. expressed maybe a year ago about some of the stuff at BPAC. And it wasn't that BPAC was doing anything wrong or not doing their job or anything. I don't want to imply that. With concerns about the length of the meeting, the amount of time staff was getting there. This is the kind of stuff that we're concerned about. Overtime, people there, meetings going on for a long time. And I know they enjoy each other's company, but those issues there have largely been brought up and they've been addressed. And I appreciate that. I think the meetings probably go about an hour now. It's very typical of a committee. And I think from a taxpayer expense from the people there, greatly reduced the amount of staff heads that were there. So we're not paying overtime. And I appreciate that being addressed. So from that standpoint, everything that I ever asked for is trying to streamline the BPAC got accomplished. So take that off the table. Now I look at the membership of the BPAC on here, and I see District 1 has 3 members in it. District 2 has 1. District 3 has 1. And District 4 with yourself has 2. There's 2 in the county. But keep in mind when the appointments were initially made with these, the district lines were a little different than they are now. If we pass this ordinance as it says now, we will lose 1 representative out of District 1. 2 will gain a representative. 3 will gain a representative. And 4 could potentially gain a representative if you continue to serve in that role. We would also lose our 2 members in the county that represented. And there's a lot of arguments for being made. I think a lot of good arguments for being made for why we would want the representatives that are voting and choosing and considering our grant applications to reside inside the city limits. We do have a precedence with other committees with people outside of the city limits on it. So this is not uncommon. Not all of our committees have residency requirements. This is basically where we shuffle it. But if this passes right now, and this is my issue that I'm having struggling getting past, approximately 1/3 of that board under the new ordinance would no longer qualify to serve on it. I struggle with that because I'm a fan of the job that they have done and the opportunities they brought the city. Now, I say all that in support of the board, but I also have to say the ordinance is most unique in the way it is written compared to our ordinances for boards. I do believe it needs some cleaning up, and I'm not opposed to whatever method this board chooses to appoint its members on this. And at the ultimate end of this, the job will get done. There's passion by this group to do it, and they're doing a good job. My third issue or concern with this, it was item C on here, going before the Parks Board. And I think you said in there at some point, the Parks Board meets every other month. I know that will introduce some time delays in the consideration of it. I think we might be wise to consider just putting a cap on our grants, not pursuing anything under $750K. Else, I fear we're going to be asking our Parks Board to meet for emergency meetings just to approve one item. And these are, with the exception of staff, unpaid volunteers. So that's my concern about that. What I would ask, and it sounds like this is kind of a 2-to-2 split here on this, I'd ask that maybe there's some room for compromise on this. I think there's some things we can do on this. I do not see how it works practically going under the Parks Board for approval for that. Yes, sir. I'll let you respond.
The Parks Board is just a location, somebody that was affiliated to some sort to get an extra pair of eyes. If there is another place for that, I don't care where it's at. I really don't. If there's a way to facilitate this without, causing problem. My only problem at this point, I got some questions that I want to ask and maybe it'll clear some things up. But first of all, we do know that is this the only committee that has ever been created by ordinance or others?
No, I think we have committees created by city ordinance.
Okay, most of them are created by
falling under state law as a guideline.
Right, it's by charter or by resolution normally, and there may be some others. So, but that was a little bit. And there's some other questions I've got too, because I thought that there was the BPAC committee itself was more than just the voting members. Is that right? Or, I mean, there's more than,
How many members want to be a part of BPAC, but there's 9 voting members.
okay, so, all right. Do those other members outside of those 9 not have any say or input as to how those people vote?
Not when it comes to a vote, but
Oh,
like
no, so
planning
they don't have no
events.
input, any
Yeah,
input?
they give input on planning events, or after we had an event, we'll say, you know, how do you think it went? So yeah, I mean, they got input as far as like that. Or if they have an idea, you know, what about this idea for this event?
Okay, can people who are outside of the city serve on the committee?
Yeah,
On the BPAC committee?
vote as a voting member.
I didn't ask you, they'll serve on the committee to work with the committee. I mean,
County residents?
anybody.
I don't understand your
I
question.
thought that there was a large portion of people that actually met with the BPAC committee. I mean, not just the 9 voting members, there were other people that came in that was a part of the committee. Is that not true?
Well, as members, is that what you were referring to as committee?
Okay.
They're
I-
members of the committee.
I think what's going on here is some of the confusion in the way that ordinance words some things in it. You have 9 voting members, but I believe it does say on there is no cap on the number of members.
Right. There's no cap on who
That's-
wants to be a member of BPAC.
Well, and that's my question. So, I mean, are there other members besides the 9 voting?
Yeah.
Okay. Do they have access to the people who are voting, and are they able to give input to the people who are voting
During the meetings? Sure.
at any point in time, before the meeting?
Or
after the meeting?
email.
I mean, okay. All right. All right. I don't want to get into another conspiracies theory, because every time that we bring something up you don't agree with, you want to attack us. I say us. There's numerous members of this board that you've just gone after with your conspiracies. I'm pretty much just sick of that.
Vice Mayor, you can just blame me.
No, okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm pretty much sick of it. How's that? I'm tired of it. I've had enough. This is not a conspiracy. Not everything is a conspiracy. And I'm tired of being accused of everything being a conspiracy. I mean, that's kind of sad to live under that kind of an umbrella, that you believe that everybody that disagrees with you is conspiratorially going after you. That's just not the case here. Just trying to clean up an ordinance. And I'm more than willing to go through and figure out what we can do to compromise. I have no problem with that. But quit attacking. It's gotten old. I'm done.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. I'm going to propose an amendment that we change C for budget items, just to simply state that, just to put a cap in there for $750K. No grants. The city should not, BPAC should not pursue grants less than, thank you, heard me struggling, less than $750K, $750,000.
Second.
I have a second. Commissioner Mullally?
What about the portion that says the Parks Board?
That was my motion to replace that with that.
Okay, and just with a figure.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Hafner? Well, let's hear it.
If the vice mayor is open to it, I'm fine with striking B1. Chairperson shall be the Board of Commissioners appointee. Striking that the appointee must be the chair. So let them, let them vote on it.
I on that one, I really am, and I mean, I'm in agreement with, was that a second? Okay. I was in agreement on that. I kind of just thought to myself, I was like, well, it really doesn't matter whose name committee, you could just turn the chair over to somebody else.
Correct.
Okay. So that, we'll just do that as a motion and a second to amend my motion to strike. Let me look at the ordinance, make sure I'm telling it right. Strike B1 as well. So I'm gonna rephrase this just for the ladies taking notes. We will replace section C saying that the BPAC committee shall not pursue any grant that is less than 750K and strike B1. And as a result of that, that'll renumber the 2, 3, and 4 accordingly.
I'd like to amend.
Okay.
Add another amendment to strike A1. Because you're really going to eliminate a lot of people who have an interest.
I'll second that.
All right.
What was the other side?
A1.
Commissioner Mullally is proposing an amendment, seconded by Commissioner Trevette, to strike A1.
It's city limits, must reside in city limits.
Residency requirement.
Voting members must reside.
I'm sorry, folks. My throat is so dry.
It's all right. Voting members must reside in the city limits.
Our city attorney.
The current ordinance requires them to either reside in the city or own a business in the city.
Yeah.
So if you're just merely a county resident without a business, you're not eligible to be a voting member.
So, I did not know that. So the
What?
current ordinance requires it to be a city.
Shall reside in or own a business in the city of Mount Juliet or in Wilson County. I'm sorry, you can reside in Wilson County.
Or Wilson County.
Wilson County. Which to me makes no sense. You just say you have to reside in Wilson County, but anyway. So it does need some cleaning up.
Okay, we do have a motion properly seconded to amend the once amended amendment. And that is on the floor, Commissioner Mullally.
I have another amendment under the fourth whereas.
So we haven't voted on the first.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All in favor of striking 1A, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have, that carries. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I burnt my voice out screaming for the Titans and it was to no avail, so.
Go Randy, go.
So we have we have an ordinance now that's amended 3 times, I believe. And Commissioner Mullally,
I have another amendment on the fourth whereas, where it says that BPAC is comprised of 9 voting members who all reside within the city limits of Mount Juliet, to change that to say Wilson County.
so yeah, replace the city limits with Wilson County.
Yes.
In the fourth whereas. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Vice Mayor?
Just open this up now that where all 9 members could be outside the city limits.
Well, no, one has to be from each city district, or 2, as y'all are proposing.
Appointed by the city commissioner. It didn't say anything about being his district.
The current ordinance requires 4 members to be from each district. So you've got it, under the current ordinance, you at least have 5 people.
And the only
commissioner
change,
appointee and
right.
1 from each of the districts.
The change that I was wanting to make is for the other 4 to come from the mayor. That's pretty much the only change.
You turned your head. I didn't hear all of what you said.
I said the other 4 members would become from the mayor. Now, what we're saying is that these 4 commissioners, all 4 of us as commissioners would pick a person. What your amendment's doing is saying, well, you can pick a person, but it could be from Watertown. But that's okay with you.
Well, that's the way it is now.
Okay.
And there's people that serve on the board with passion. They have a passion.
I'm glad. That tickles me to death.
What you're going to kill morale.
I'm sorry?
You are going to kill morale
Oh, okay.
on
Well,
BPAC.
okay.
Let's stay on the
Obviously, that's my
amendment to
goal.
the amendment to the amendment. I gotta say, I am not a fan of amending amendments because I have to read them back and keep them straight. They have to record them. And the problem, just my advice for whatever it means. When you amend an amendment, you generally are just weighting it down, giving people something that they don't like because a piece of it to vote against the whole. If you got the votes, take the win. All right, so we're back on correcting, I guess, adding in Wilson County in there. That's the motion that's on the floor and properly seconded for a vote. All in favor of replacing the BPACs are comprised of 9 voting members who all reside within Wilson County. Supporting voting members can reside or own a business in Wilson County. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm going to say nay on this, and and this is why we need to circle back and clean some of this up. 5 members, we've gone way too deep on this as far as changes. My opinion.
Well, isn't that contradicting A1 that we just took out?
It is. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I mean, honestly, there's a lot involved in this. I would love to go ahead and make a motion to defer this until this can be cleaned up. Because
I
if we keep-
second.
Because if we keep going to this, we're going to be here all night amending the amendment of the amendment. And I think our attorney is going to really get upset with all of the changes here. So
2 readings.
It does have 2 readings.
I understand that, but how much further are we going to keep taking this down the rabbit hole, so to speak?
I just have one change.
On advisement, and that's what we're on, advisement of deferral. I'd recommend not deferring, voting on what we got, and then we need to go back once we got that set and fix the Wilson County versus Mount Juliet language in this. Else, it's just going to become beyond
Okay.
complicated.
Well, then I'll retract my statement of referral.
All right.
Deferral, excuse me.
Are you in agreement? If there's no objection, I'm going to ask for the vote on the amendment to the amendment to the amendment.
So what are we voting on here?
I'm not even sure what that is.
I don't know. That's where we're at. I need to move the air down because I'm getting a little hot.
Okay, we have, we started with C1, replacing it with, replacing the wording in C1 to say the BPAC will not consider any item less than $750,000 in grants.
Strike B1.
Next one was to strike B1. The chairperson shall be the voting commissioner appointed by BPAC. To strike it.
No, appointed by the commissioner.
I'm sorry, did I read that wrong?
Well, you said by BPAC.
Well, it's striking B1. The chairperson shall
Right.
be the board of commissioner appointed by BPAC. I think I got it. And the next one was to amend all voting, was to actually strike A1, which all voting members shall reside within the city limits of Mount Juliet. And did I miss one other?
I still didn't hear you say take the Parks and Greenways board for a positive or negative recommendation
replaced
out of
that.
C.
He was replacing it with it.
My motion that was seconded and voted on was to replace the language in C with the BPAC shall not pursue any grants less than $750,000.
Okay.
So it's
Just wanna-
basically just don't do this in lieu of going.
All
to
right.
Park
Want to be
Board.
sure.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question for line A1. Are we keeping it as in city of Mount Juliet or and Wilson County or just Wilson County?
I believe the motion was all voting members shall reside within Wilson County.
That was we just shot that one
struck.
down.
You're right.
That
See?
was struck.
A1 is struck.
Okay.
So A1, B1, and replacing C in its entirety with the BPAC shall not pursue any grants less than $750K. I'm going to ask Ms. Hamlin if she's got any notes to the contrary of what I have
That's what I
said.
have.
Okay. Would anybody like me to repeat that? I think I can summarize it real quick now. All in favor of the amendment to the amendment of the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
All right. Folks, this is where we sit right now. We have on that fourth whereas that says the BPAC is comprised of 9 voting members who are residents within the city limits of Mount Juliet. Supporting non-voting members can reside or own a business in Wilson County. The next item on there says the next section says the mayor will appoint 4 voting members. The mayor will appoint 4 voting members with each of his or her picks coming from each of the 4 districts. Each district commissioner will appoint a person from their district as a voting member. The members shall serve staggered terms with their terms expiring. The terms of the elected officials that appointed them. And then 5, the City of Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners will vote on appointments to the voting members of BPAC. A bio should be provided by each voting member. And then C1 has been replaced to say the BPAC will not consider any item or any grant less than $750K. Are we on the same page?
Sounds like it to me.
All right.
I just have.
Now, if
Wait a
there's
minute.
any other changes. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mayor, as you were stating that, I just want to make sure because, my interpretation, and I apologize for everybody that's watching all of this or in the room tonight. So what you're saying, I know, I must need some gum in order to be able to get this through here. So you're stating that the mayor can only appoint 4 members that are within the city limits? Is that correct?
It says the mayor will appoint 4 voting members with each of his or her picks coming from
4
each
districts.
of the 4 districts. So my interpretation of that is I'd pick someone from 1, 2, 3, and 4 accordingly.
Correct. And then the commissioners will also have the ability to pick 1 individual from each district as well, correct?
Correct.
And then, okay. So basically, everybody will be living in the city of each district.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that would use up the available slots.
Just want to make sure that that's all on. Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Well, what if we amended number 2, B2, to say, or Wilson County, and leave it up to you in case someone comes to you that lives in, wherever around
Lebanon.
here, but in the county. And
Yeah.
that way
Or
it's
in
up
one
to
of these
you.
pockets.
My suggestion would be to say, amend this to say that these changes take effect as the existing member terms expire. So the people that are in the county now will expire, and once their term is expired, then whoever has a deficiency in their district will make their appointment at that point to a resident of the city.
Well,
I think that would accomplish.
Is that
It's a
just
good
for the
compromise.
county?
Yep.
So it wouldn't affect the districts, just the county?
Oh, we would, if we only impacted the county seats like that, we would still be losing one of the representatives for District 1. Because there's currently 3 people in there, and there's no way to slice it or dice it with what we have now that you can get 3 back in there. We would be losing one of those. I think maybe.
What if we just compromised and said, okay, 7 out of the 9 would be within city limits? That's using the same model as we use with the planning commission.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good compromise too. The problem is you would probably need to amend you probably need to define who's going to appoint the county ones, and you could just make.
The mayor would be the one to appoint the county ones.
I might suggest an either or, but then again, somebody's district is going to get shorted to produce the county representatives.
Say that again.
Well, if the mayor makes 4 appointments and he has to pick from 4 districts, he would have to exclude 2 of the 4 districts to go outside and pick someone from the county. So it may not provide the parity, which I think was one of the desires I read into this.
Yeah, a district.
Yeah. I like my suggestion, surprisingly, which is just to.
That's actually getting nothing accomplished at this point. So you're just trying to keep heads from rolling, and which was teeth from gnashing, and
like I said,
keep morale up, though.
I have no problem.
If that kills morale, then we got a bigger problem than
Then
let's
keep
create
the
a
ball
ordinance.
rolling, so to speak.
That's stupid. No.
Morale's like momentum in a football game. It's a fickle thing sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
So my suggestion is just simply this: just leave the people that are in their spots when those people's terms expire. Just replace them according to what we have outlined here.
I've got one that's on there till 2025.
I do agree.
That's a little bit extreme, I think, maybe a little long.
Maybe to the end of the commissioner's term or the mayor's term. So whoever's there now.
Well, if I'm agreeable to make these changes apply. December 2024. It'd be you have a new mayor, or I can't see how anybody would want me back after tonight.
I don't think anybody wants to pick up the job after tonight.
But
It's true too.
I do have a question on that.
Commissioner Hefner.
So District 3 currently has one open seat. Is that the existing District 3 representative? Is that your appointee, or is that my appointee, or how do we reconcile that?
You have no say.
Well, are you saying currently has an open seat in it? There is an appointment for District 3 now, but the second one.
Correct, but
Yeah.
there's only one District 3 representative.
Yeah.
So if this passes,
there's
there's going to be an open
It's going to be
District 3.
shuffling, yes.
So is that your?
It would come
appointment?
from right now it would come from either the 2 counties or one of the 3 out of District 1.
How could that
I
be?
wound up losing one, you wound up gaining one.
But how can that be if they live in District 1? What are you saying?
I'm saying there's three bodies in District 1 right
Right.
now. And unless we put Commissioner Justice on there, which wouldn't save them, there's no way to currently put 3 back on there, because Commissioner Justice would presumably maybe put one of those 3 back on, and then I would be able to put one on in District 1 myself. But they would still be a 3rd man left out
Right.
because there's only 2 spots. And I'm reluctant to be too harsh on volunteers.
Yeah. This is going to kill morale. And I say that
So
from somebody who
Talk to the mayor, not me.
works. Mayor, I say this from someone who is involved with these people.
Thank you. Yes.
So
Commissioner Hefner.
I'm fine with whoever's currently there in District 3, but expiring at the end of the term, at the end of my term. And then whether I run again and get reelected or choose not to, whoever is sitting in this seat 2 years from now will have an opportunity to appoint someone. Just like Commissioner Trevette, just all of us. So just make those current seats, the current voting members coincide with the current commissioner and mayor's term.
If I'm hearing you correct, you're either planning to, and that's an option. We can extend or
just-
shorten the
just make
term.
Current, yeah, keep everybody in place today. Just when the commission seat is up for, when you have a new turn in the commission seat, and that new commissioner or existing commissioner has the ability to appoint.
So Alicia Ely is District 3, and her term is up 2005, and you have to run again in 2004. So what is it you're saying?
2025,
2025.
24.
So if whoever is sitting in the seat in 2024 will have the ability to either keep her on, reappoint her, or appoint someone else.
Even though she's already been a voting member, voted in as 2025 expiration.
Correct.
Because people are appointed, I mean, if we change the structure of the BPAC, it would not hold up those appointments because it would be under a new structure.
And this is the reason why I wanted it deferred. This is the exact reason why I wanted it deferred. And because we were going to be faced with this situation that we're having right now.
So you know what? I absolutely agree with you. Let's defer this one meeting.
Motion in a second.
Absolutely.
On
Let's do this
deferral.
and get these people out of here. Good Lord.
All right, we're on advisability deferrals. Does anyone have anything to say on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just there. We deferred it.
Well, then go along with it.
So I think we're all in agreement. Let's go.
I would like to amend the deferral to say that this deferral would take place in 2 years
You
to
cannot-
allow the people who have just been voted in with expiration terms to serve out their terms.
Commissioner, your point, sir.
I defer is not amendable
Not debatable.
or amendable or debatable. It's no.
All right, all in favor of deferral for one meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We are deferred. We'll point out this ordinance was amended a few times before referral, so it will come back again for on first reading for consideration as we amended it here. You're welcome for not having to keep all those notes. (11A7), an ordinance amending ordinance 2013-23 to designate officials authorized to sign checks and withdraw funds on the confidential drug fund account.
Motion.
Have a motion? I'll second. Any questions or comments, discussions on those? Commissioner Mullally.
Just a quick question. Up until now, who has had access and what is the purpose of, what would be an example of a reason to withdraw? And what would it be used for?
This is just basic housekeeping with Lieutenant Brotman's move to a different position, Lieutenant Cawthorn taking over investigations. Currently, the confidential fund is housed by myself. It requires myself and the chief of police to sign off for any confidential funds that be dispersed. This changes does two things. One, it changes from the chief and myself. It changes to myself and Lieutenant Cawthorn, but it also changes the wording. So if this position changes happens in the future, it doesn't have to come back to the BOC. Whoever holds those positions would be allowed to make those changes.
You're making the, you're defining it by title, not by individual.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, questions or comments? All in favor of the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Man, that went quick. It's confidential. 11A8, an ordinance to amend fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance 2022-2032 to accept and appropriate additional grant funds for the Hamilton Denson Park project. I'll make a motion. Second. It's under city manager sponsorship, but I'll speak to this. This came up on a conference call with the group there with the state that oversees the grant, there's a required orientation that we have to go through. This was something that was brought up on the call, so I'll take the credit or the blame for this. What this does, it's election time credit, of course. What this does is it gives us the option to secure additional grant monies. It doesn't obligate us to spend it anyway. It's basically my summary, a way to us to deal with some of the inflationary concerns that come along with these grants. This ordinance allocates the money. It does not spend it in any way, but we have to guarantee the match for the grant. What is that amount?
My apologies, I should have looked it up before I looked it up.
Let me open the executive summary.
Yeah.
The city, it's $860,000. That's the total. Our portion would be 430,000. Hamilton Denson Park. Did you, city manager?
The soccer fields and all are going. Tate Lane.
This does not spend the money or allocate the money in any way. It's just we have to commit, if we want the grant, to setting aside the $430,000 on the match to be considered.
That field is my understanding that it's not a soccer field, correct? It is a
Practice
all
field.
practice field
Yeah.
for anybody, correct?
Yeah, and that
Okay.
was part of the grant requirements that the monies be used for that.
All purpose field.
Yeah,
Yes.
all purpose, yes.
Yeah, I know,
Mhm.
because that was what I talked to Rocky about, which was, again, asking him, is this all soccer fields? He said, no. This is all purpose, softball, football, baseball, anybody can use these fields. They just have to schedule them. That's all.
So they want to have bases and everything set up for softball.
These are just flat fields. They're just flat fields. So practice fields, that's all they are, practice only.
Okay.
I know, that's where, I just want to make sure you know that because I just found out about it as well.
Okay.
My apologies, Mayor.
No, this is a little unique in terms
It
of
is.
grants. After being awarded a grant, being offered additional monies, if
Yep.
basically
because of inflation.
50% granted, 860, correct?
It's actually 50% of the 215,000, is that correct?
So when it?
107,500.
It's not $430,000.
That's what the original.
Yeah,
grant
400. I read the top line. You're correct. It's 430. The initial grant was 830,000.
So the net new is 107.
Yes.
Which is 50% of 215,000.
215,000.
Which is the additional.
Okay, that makes me feel a whole lot better. Thank you.
Yeah.
This go
This,
into
I'm saving you
palpitations. here.
half off right now.
Do what?
He just saved you half or
Well,
$200,000
yeah.
just like that.
In perspective, it's not granting anybody else make any other expenditures on it because what's budgeted is budgeted, but this is just our opportunity to hold this grant. Any other questions or comments on it?
No.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. All right. Next item is 11B1, a resolution declaring the City of Mount Juliet Police Department vehicles as surplus to be disposed of at Gov Deals auction.
Motion.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure, does any of our other departments need any used vehicles has that been discussed? Because I know that we do have some old inventory that, the other departments have asked that same question. Just want to make sure it was looked at.
I'm betting they do, but we're
Yeah.
going to turn to our city
That's
manager.
Great question, Commissioner, and absolutely. As a matter of fact, Marty and I were talking about that earlier. We try to repurpose the old vehicles into different departments. One of those, we wouldn't be able to do it unless we paid the drug fund back, and that's the SUV. The other squad cars wouldn't be useful in the other departments for any other city vehicles.
Okay, just want to make sure that we can't take the tires off of one old car and put them on the other. So just make sure we
We do keep a couple spares that we
Sure.
think in case our car gets crashed, to have a
Yeah.
fender or something like that, since body parts are so hard to find, but not those body parts, car, auto body parts.
Okay.
Body parts. But yes, sir, that's always already been vetted.
Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Pickup truck? Did you get your pickup truck?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just wondering, maybe you wanted one of these old police cars too.
Bringing back memories or something, right?
I will tell you, with some of these pursuits we've had recently, maybe some of these old cars would have been good for pit maneuvers.
Well, that Ford Explorer may be a good opportunity for somebody to keep those. So
Well, it seems to be the norm now to try to
Yeah.
ram police
Yeah,
vehicles,
everybody just runs.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, any questions or comments on this? All in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Carries. Our next item is 11B2, which was the inserts on the table, a resolution designating the celebration Mount Juliet 50th anniversary event proceeds to the nonprofit organizations Everyone's Wilson and Mount Juliet Hope. Have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments on this? All right, all in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? That carries. Next item is appointments. I have two names to submit for the appointment to the Board of Adjustment Appeals. One is Jessica Gore, and the other one is Alexander Becker. This is appointed by myself. It doesn't require a vote of the Board of Commissioners, but this is appointments to the Board of Adjustment Appeals, and I think that should put us in a good place with our membership on that one. The next one will require a vote of the Board of Commissioners. It's a Traffic Commission appointment. Miss Regina Henry has submitted her name for the open position that we have there. That's my name. It will require a vote of the Board of Commissioners for consideration. Move to accept.
Second.
Second. All in favor of the appointment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Henry is appointed to our Traffic Commission. And our last item is a discussion item. That was throwing me the header there for the appointments was discussion item 2. The discussion item, and this is by Commissioner Mullally. Commissioner, you're recognized.
All right, this is just a grant opportunity came up. It's a TAP grant that would cover 80% of construction costs for the project. 2 options to look at. The grant application would be due October 7th. First one would be Belinda Parkway Sidewalks Phase 2. Matt had not done the cost estimate yet, but would, prior to a resolution being approved by the BOC, it would be similar to Phase 1 cost plus inflation. So he estimates around 1.6 million, but it's just a ballpark. The city would be responsible for all design and right-of-way easement acquisition cost. He estimates 200,000 on the right-of-way and easement, and to be roughly 100,000. I didn't say that right, but 300,000. The sidewalks will be installed in the existing right-of-way, but they're likely to need easements to tie back slopes and driveways outside the right-of-way. So plus the 20% in the neighborhood of 620. The second one would be Cedar Creek Greenway Phase 2. This would be the portion connecting to Lebanon Road. You have maps to look at. Construction costs would be about the same, around 1.6. Engineering would be a little more because of floodplain work and bridge design. So he estimates 300 for engineering. Right-of-way acquisition would be around 200. So plus the 20%, you're probably talking around 820, thereabouts. Now, a portion of this would be included in the putt-putt development when and if that moves forward. So this is just to gauge interest from this board to basically let Public Works know if they should pursue the grant or not before wasting time on it.
Sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
This has been in our plan and our that we created, Lord, 2005. So I'm not sure it's already in our vein of interest. And the putt-putt course, who knows if that's even going to happen. So I have no idea. But I mean, and I'm not understanding why this is coming to us now. This should be ongoing. Why are we just getting this?
Well, it's a new grant that just came up.
It's a new grant.
Yeah, so it's a new TAP grant through
Okay.
TDOT.
All right.
So before Public Works spends any time on it, doing paperwork and whatever, they want to gauge interest from the board to see if they should pursue, proceed.
I think on the Greenway, it was a 20% match of the 1.6. So is that, I don't know, for both these projects, I think my initial math was about, it would require roughly a $1.5 million ish commitment from the Board of Commissioners based on what the cost is going to come back. That's going to be by my math, that's what our match is on construction, engineering, and right-of-way acquisition. Is, I think, what you need to hear from us is that we're going to support you on the 1.5 million the city would have to come up with.
And the first thing I'm going to ask is, how much would this project cost if we did it in-house? And how much is it going to cost is this a TDOT grant? It is a TDOT grant. So are they going to turn around and get money from the federal government on top of that? So we wind up with another 13-year process?
So this project is it's the same grant pot that we're getting with the Cedar Creek Greenway Phase 1 that's under construction right now. Given a similar time frame, we did that application in 2015. So, that's including easements and acquisitions, et cetera. So that's about a 7-year completion from application to project completion. So, of course, we've been under construction, I guess, for about a year now. So that's kind of the general idea. So, I mean, time frame on that is doable. I think Belinda Parkway sidewalks was able to be completed. We did that application in 2014 and we finished that project in 2021. So it was about a 6-year time frame, 6.5 year time frame total altogether on that one. One of the things I'll note on this, I think they're fairly similar in project scope and what they would be. One's a greenway, one's a sidewalk, but the impacts from the sidewalk is going to be harder because you have all the driveways you got to contend with. I will note that both do provide vital connections. We've talked about both projects in the past. And I think from the BPAC's recommendation on that, from talking with Matt before on this, I think they're pretty, both have merits. Both have, we've discussed both. We've talked about both, applying for both projects in the past. As far as the grant funding on this, the grant funding only pays for construction. And these projects would be significant enough that the grant funding is worth it. We would save money in the deal. I guess that's probably really kind of what it boils down to. Would we save money by going after the grant versus not? And we definitely would. These are significant enough grant application dollar amounts that we would absolutely be saving ourselves money.
Bye. I just want to know what time it was. I mean, he tells you how to build a watch. Andy, I love you.
It's 9:23. It's too late. Here longer, I'll talk all night.
By my math on the greenways, we got an estimation of 1.6 million in construction cost, and that number it says just a ballpark estimate since the initial phase was 1.4 million. So the new estimate is 1.6. If it costs 1.6 and we got an 80-20 match, the city of Mount Juliet would be receiving $1,280,000.
So the total amount out of the city, 500 approximately.
Yeah.
Well,
500.
Well, it doesn't cover. We don't get any match on engineering and right of way. So
So we have to provide the engineering and right away, and that's
correct,
in-house.
at 100% on the engineering right of way.
That's correct.
Okay.
I came up with approximately 620 for the Belinda Parkway and around 820 for the Cedar Creek.
Sounds about right.
I come up with 620 and 920. So That's,
Okay.
I think we're in the ballpark. I'll add,
I'm $100,000 is just a big old ballpark. Can we kind of tighten that down?
Sure.
Where are we at?
we're
Okay.
ballparking off ballpark numbers.
I got it. I understand.
This is
Yeah, this is
discussion
just
item.
discussion. We'd be bringing the resolution back at the next meeting.
Can we get some figures as to what it would cost with us doing it by our standards versus what it's going to take to do it by TDOT standards? Because TDOT will wind up, you know how that works.
I don't know that you're really going to save a whole lot on construction costs, to be honest.
Just bring it when you come back with the resolution. Just bring
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
The information, please.
The commissioner's ballpark was better than my ballpark. It's
I
820.
liked her ballpark better than yours. Yes.
Can I point something out? All right, so if the estimation on Belinda Parkway sidewalks is around, give or take, 620, and if y'all's other thing passed with the 750 minimum, that would eliminate this grant. Is that not true?
Combined.
No, phase.
That's a
phase
combined
2
grant.
alone's 1.6 million.
Yeah. The grant would be over, the grant total would be over $1 million. I think that was the intent.
Are you talking about, okay, so is that $750 referring to grant totals or what it would cost the city?
Project totals.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, well, never mind. I thought it was referring to what it would cost the city.
No, well, I mean, it's the grant total is what you're looking for. Or the project total is what you're looking for.
Okay, all right.
So I don't see it precluding either of these. My feedback, the phase 2 on the sidewalks, I got a lot of phone calls about phase 1. And he's smiling. I got a lot of phone calls from people who weren't able to get in their driveways and parking on the grass, not the road. And I acknowledge some of that was probably the particular contractor that was used. And yeah, but I don't want a repeat of that on phase 2. That was rough going through it. And it put a lot of people in some difficult situations. And anytime you're adding sidewalks to existing properties, there's always these challenges. But I'm 100% in support in pursuing the Cedar Creek Greenway, definitely. Phase 2, on the sidewalks, I just like some guarantees that we're not going to put those people through what a number of the people do it through on phase 1.
Yeah, the subcontractor totally screwed up that job.
Well, I don't want to say too much because I think we might be having ourselves in a little bit of a legal challenge on that one. But it would be my opinion that until some of these issues, quality issues, and some of the other matters that we've had with the subcontractor on that project, that I would not like to see them work here in the city.
Yeah. I'm just
until
conveying the
some of those
feedback I
issues are
received.
settled. I'll put it that way, and I think that's a good caveat.
But in a normal situation where, give or take any location that are working on sidewalks under construction, isn't there always a problem with parking or whatever?
Well,
Getting in your
sometimes.
driveway?
Yeah, I mean, compare Lebanon Road Phase 1 sidewalks that were over there. You had a ton of businesses down through there. I mean, you can go talk to Mark Lineberry, you can go talk to Bill Robinson. They had a lot of properties affected by it. Those seemed to go along fairly well. Had a better contractor on that, and so that project in particular is a good example of you had a good contractor. They had good communication. And I think it was a success on that. There's going to be impacts, and there's no doubt, but it's the communication and coordination and how well a contractor can do that can make the difference.
Yeah. So anyway, to let Public Works though.
I'm 100% in support of the Greenway, pursuing the Greenway. I'm in support of the sidewalks with my caveats I added. Any other feedback for Public Works? Not caviar. Got to go for it. Anybody else?
I support it.
All right. Commissioner, any other questions, discussion?
No.
All right, that concludes that discussion item. Any other business before the Board of Commissioners? Yep. I have a motion to adjourn, and without objection, we are adjourned.